And yeah, today's plan is different than normal plans. I am going to do virtual plein air painting. Basically just painting from life, but not from life because I'm not outside. I'm inside. Also, my glasses are smudgy. So I'm going to use Map Crunch, Google Street View, but just like a randomizer, so I don't really know where I am. Kind of like GeoGuessr minus the guessing. I mean, technically we can figure out where we are because it'll tell us, but it's just like a randomizer, puts us somewhere in the world, and then I can, we can search for something fun to paint and then paint it. I'm not going to consider this a study though, because I kind of am, but like I'm treating it more as plein air painting, as painting what's in front of me, which means I have to decide what I want to paint and how I want to paint it and what I think is interesting about it, and I might try to emphasize that. So that's kind of the plan. Also, I have some weird background noise right now. Okay. So yeah, that's the plan for today. So, I did prepare something. I prepared a few map crunch places, but I also want to look for some on stream. I prepared 2 just in case we can't find anything fun, because, with the whole nature of it being random, I don't know. This is one of the spots I thought would be nice. I loaded into Casey Snow's stream today, and she was painting some bridges, and I thought it was kind of neat that we stumbled across this, because it's a very, very simple bridge, but it's kind of nice, and I think there's a lot of stuff, and so we could pick... Also, there's like a weird hole. Yeah. We could pick this scene. This is another scene, more street view type thing. Buildings, lots of stuff to pick from. We could do like a shop or something. I don't know. Or a fence. We could just pick like a single thing, Just pick something to paint. And I think part of the fun, like I thought maybe this to paint would be fun, but obviously it's going to be hard to see all of it, I think. Like, how good of a view are we going to get? So it might be a matter of like, zooming out. This is what I think I might end up doing is painting something like this, but then basically deleting this building and sort of like figuring out what it looks like and filling it out and just like making this building look as cool as I can. Maybe, up the lighting, add some warmth to it or some cool colors, pop out some of those greens because they're all kind of flat right now. So I think that's probably what I'll do for this one, is something like that, where I'm just taking a thing that I think is neat, that's memorable, and sort of like, what do I like about it? I think the colors are neat, but also, again, they don't really stand out. The lighting is kind of flat. This lighting is very gray and like there's a lot of cool colors in here, but it's hard. They don't really stand out against the lighting. And I think we can do something with that. So, yeah, maybe that. So, let's go somewhere else and see. So this is how you find reference? No, this is less no, I don't find reference by just randomly finding stuff. Typically when I paint, also hi Siren and Sturmigo, hello. No, so typically when I paint, I don't start with a reference. I start with just figuring out what I want to paint. Like, let's paint a mountain with a volcano, or, a bunch of trees and certain types of rocks, or maybe there's an archway that I think would be cool, or a certain building. Maybe I want to paint a mausoleum. And so then once I figure out what I want to paint, I'll go and find references for that thing, right? So that's, maybe something feels kind of graveyardish, so I'll go and look at graveyards. And like, that's after I've already done the sketch. This is different. This, for me, is a totally valid way of painting as well. But this is basically like, wandering around outside looking for something to paint. What is it I want to paint today? I don't know, but let's find something interesting. And when you do find something interesting, you paint it, And then maybe, it's like part study. That's probably one of the best ways to paint, honestly, or sketch, is just draw the things you think are interesting. Because one, you think it's interesting, so it'll be fun. And 2, because you're drawing it, it's going to force you to kind of slow down and pay attention to it. So it's sort of like a mix between a study and just you painting for fun. It's like, you know, do I want to paint a golf course? Not really. But maybe there's a cool, maybe the club up here will look neat. That's not the club. Where's the club? Don't golf courses supposed to have like a big, oh, that must be it. I don't know how to get there. Anyway, let's go to a new place. So yeah, no, I wouldn't really call this finding a reference. This is more just finding a location to paint, and which it will be my reference. But this, I guess this is like, in my mind, I think of this as a little bit different, because in here I am painting this subject. I'm not, like, necessarily taking parts of it and applying it to something completely different, right? Like, if you wanted to paint a dragon, you might find birds to reference, right? You might find reptiles to reference. You might find fire to reference. You don't have to find a dragon to reference. Whereas this, I am gonna paint, like, one of these scenes, but I might change it and focus on what is the thing about this that I think is interesting. So this to me is more like, kind of like you're being the art director, you're being the photographer, right? Where you are deciding what is, what about this scene is worth looking at. I could just paint the whole thing like this, right? Spin the camera, paint wherever it lands. There's no composition of me to figure out. There's nothing. But that's not interesting, right? That's just, actually, this is kind of a cool spot. But, like, maybe I think this truck is interesting. So I would, focus on this truck. And I would focus on, framing it. And, showing the scale of it compared to the trucks around it. So maybe I make it a little smaller than it is, right? And make it cuter or something. Because maybe I think this is a cute truck. And so I'm kind of storytelling based on what I see. I don't know if that makes sense. Drea Vico. Or Drea Vico. And Kitty Craftsy. Hello, it's been a while. Hope you're doing fine. I am doing fine. I'm doing very well. I'm just talking through sort of how I think of virtual plein air painting versus like how I would normally use references. And to me, this is kind of... It reminds me a little bit of like if you went on a vacation and you walked around and then you got back and someone said, how was your vacation? Did you see anything cool? Like, what is it that you talk about, right? This to me is like, I'm on vacation, there's all this stuff, but what is it that I'm like, oh, we saw this, the signs were really weird, they were so different than we have in the US. Or, oh, some of their cars are so cute. They have these cute little trucks that, work trucks or whatever. Or I love the flowers in the partitions in the middle of the freeway. Our freeways are boring and ugly and their freeways are awesome, right? So it's like, what are you actually talking about, right? And so to me, my goal today is going to be trying to communicate visually the thing that's interesting. I'm not going to paint the whole scene exactly as it is. I'll change things. If there's a weird, if I want to paint this scene, maybe I would paint this vehicle. But maybe I'd get rid of this weird thing in the back because I don't even know what that is. Is it part of the truck? Is it part of a different truck? Is it, like, I don't actually know what this is, and it just adds confusion, right? And maybe we can find out what it is. So that's something. I actually don't know what it is. No, we can't. It's time moved too fast. But like, so I might leave stuff. Oh no, did I just lose it? Oh wait, there's that truck. Okay, we're back. No, wait, are we back? I can't find it. I mean, this looks like the truck, but I don't know how we got over there. Anyway, not a big deal. But the point I'm trying to make is, I think there's a lot of different ways to use references, and obviously this is one. But to me, this is more like painting on location, where you just have to. It's a giant act in simplifying. Whereas if we went like to Casey Snow's stream today, and when she was doing bridge studies, she was just taking images of bridges and like breaking them down, trying to understand the architecture, maybe a bit of perspective practice, right? But it was less about like everybody was more or less painting the same subject, and it was the bridge. Whereas this, if we were to do a plein air painting and everybody were standing here, I would expect everybody would focus on something different, right? Maybe people, maybe one person thinks this is really interesting and they think it's creepy, so they, add extra creepiness to it. Here, we can close this probably. Can we minimize this? Is there a way to, like, get rid of this thing? I don't know. There probably is. But yeah, maybe, like, and maybe somebody else would paint the skyline because they think it's a beautiful, framing, or they really like these trees, the way it's being framed here. Like, that's kind of neat. Maybe somebody else is, standing up the road and they, they love these trees. Or what the heck is this? Like, this is weird distortion that you wouldn't see that in real life, obviously. But maybe, you want to paint this scene and you want to, emphasize the blue sky poking through the trees. And so you amp that up. That to me is kind of what I like about plein air painting. It's sort of this, also we can duplicate this. It's sort of like this exercise in communication, right? To me, it feels very much like a writing exercise. If you were, again, kind of like that vacation example, if you were to write, describe this scene, like, what do you describe? You could spend all day writing about it. But if I wanted you to write it in a paragraph or a page, like, what do you tell about, right? Do you talk about the sounds? Do you talk about the hustle and bustle? Do you talk about the decay of the buildings, of sort of, the disrepair, the lack of sidewalks, or maybe it's the trash on the ground, right? Like, there's so many things we could focus on. We can't focus on it all, right? And so that's kind of what I think would be fun to do. So, and of course, I'm not really looking to just paint vast landscapes. This stuff to me is, we can paint this any day of the week. I want to find something that, maybe there's like a cute town. Like, I see this immediately and I'm like, oh, I want to go look at the cute little buildings, right? It's like a little cluster of buildings. And so I go and look at it and, like, maybe there's something here that just is neat, Maybe there's something in here that speaks to me in a way that's like, oh, this is interesting. Like, that could be a fun little, area to paint. Or this barn and a tractor. I don't know, can we get over there? Probably not. But yeah, I am doing well today. Oh, what is this? Why did it blur it, I wonder? I wonder why it blurred that. But yeah, I do like this, actually. This looks like a kind of, oh, this is neat. Like, that's a cool building right there. I like that. Maybe we'll paint that. Maybe that's what we'll start with. Sort of this rundown building. But again, like, what about, what part of the building is run down? Like, maybe, I don't paint the whole thing, and trying to figure out how do I want to do this. Because I don't want to get into the habit of measuring out composition, planning the composition with the camera, and then painting what I see in the camera. I want to think about it as if, like, I'm standing back here on the other side of the road, and this is what I'm looking at, right? And, like, what's the vibe here? So I think that's what I'm going to start with. Sorry if that was a long introduction. That's the plan today. Also, I hope everything, the volume and stuff is working. Okay, plein air painting. Let's start. Let's just start with some... let's see. Maybe there's a better way. Also, I can give the links to these, by the way. If anybody wants to paint along, you could paint in a similar spot. Speaking of, like, if we were all in the same location. Here is this location. I think that's this location. Actually, let me double check. That may not be this location. I think I gave you... No, that's not that location. Let me share. I gave you the wrong location. Just kidding. This is the correct... That's the location I'm painting now. Okay. And then I'm gonna... Let me put it on the screen so people can see what I'm painting. Grab pure ref. But yeah, I hope everyone's doing well today. Hope the day is going good. Alright, also this music is intense. Okay, so I'm just gonna take the full thing here. Actually, I will crop it a little bit for myself. But I actually like the skyline because I think that's important. This sort of nature-y farmland. And so I'm actually gonna crop it a little larger because I think that's part of the interest of the picture. Some intense music. Sounds like we're going into battle. I don't think painting should be a battle. I guess it could be. Could be a little challenging, difficult, stressful maybe. What happened to my Twitch? Where did... Okay. So yeah, let's do this. Let's put this down. Trying to figure out where I want to put this. Down here, maybe? No, that's not a good location. I don't know. I mean, we don't have to have this exactly this way. Something like that, maybe? So it's underneath us? There. That'll work. Okay. So yeah. I think what I'm going to start out is I just... And this may turn out terribly. I don't know. Like, this is kind of new to me. But I think what I want to start out with is sort of the... Like, this middle part here. Where it's sort of you have... Like a lighter material. And do I want it to be crumbling? Like, I'm trying to think how I want it. Like, do I want... I don't know. I gotta think about it. And so I'm gonna kind of do some sketching, but also kind of... Just a little bit of planning. Like, I could do this building right here. I think this corner, though, is the interesting thing. So I might even do, like, a looking up view. I might change the perspective a little bit. And I want to focus on some of this stuff, like the... Maybe we can zoom in. I don't want to zoom in too much because, again, I want to observe it like I'm actually observing it, right? Like, it's... In real life, you can't just zoom into every... I mean, we have cameras, so we kind of can. But I like this thing. So maybe actually I'll even do that first. I'll draw this thing here, this sort of dark shape, focusing on, you know, it's obviously going to be in shadow. I just like that. I don't know. I'm still kind of figuring this out. I'm not great at this type of thing. But to me, this feels like it's an interesting part of the painting. I also like the, you know, there's like some foundational stuff poking through here. And then in the front, there's a little bit of green, which is actually really green, right? And it's not just like a, I don't know, it's like how green do we want it? And I feel like I want it pretty green. And of course, we could make it more, you know, run down, more dead looking. But I think this part right here, this corner, to me, that's interesting. Maybe the composition's not going to be great, though, and I'm a little bit afraid of that. Like, do we want the chimney? Right? The chimney almost makes it look new for some reason. I don't know why. That's kind of a weird... Oh, hey, there's a bot I can ban. Fun. I haven't had to ban a bot in a while. Forget how, almost. It's been so long. Ban user. Nice. I love banning bots. Genuinely. It's actually fun. It's always, like, if they're gonna happen, I want them to happen at the start of stream so I can ban them and start the stream off good. I don't want to, like, do it in the middle because then it can actually be a disruption. But... yeah. And there's some holes in here, which I think are neat. There's some negative space up here. We can probably get the blue sky in because the blue in the background is really nice. So again, I don't know exactly how well this will work. I might have to readjust the size. I'm not sure if I like the framing that I chose here. You know, the mountains behind, there's a few trees here and there. They're basically just dark shapes. You know, where do I want the trees? Maybe it's framing the scene. Also, this could be much darker. I will say, as I'm painting this, I actually really like the colors here too. This is the very nice, like warm and white, like a warm brownish, reddish color, and then this white paint. I think that's really cool looking. I don't know why. There's something about that is a very nice color palette. And so maybe what I'll do is actually bring in some of that into this building, even though it's not technically right here in the picture. But like, I like those colors, and then of course the reds from here. And again, I don't know how well this is gonna work, but this is my plan. And if anybody wants to paint along, feel free. I'd love to see what people are up to today. Something like that. The mountains back there. Really focusing on the disrepair of this. Something like that. And then, of course, this is darker in value, so it, you know, I do want to get the values of stuff right. This is pretty red, but I do wonder if maybe I can't change the perspective a bit. Not the perspective. I am changing the perspective a bit. If I can't change the... See, I will say, one thing I don't like about this is that it doesn't capture the farmland aspect. So maybe I do make this a little smaller. And this is one of the benefits of digital. If I was doing this on paper... Oops. Wrong layer. If I was doing this on paper, though, this wouldn't work. Because, like, you know, I would be stuck. And I would have had to plan better. I will say, one thing I haven't thought about, though, is exaggerating the size and scale. I think I want to do that a bit. Like, I do think I want the edge of the building. That's nice. But why can't I paint here? What's happening? One thing I do notice, though, is that this building, the roof, is surprisingly... I don't know what that is. But I really think it's cool that the roof has a pretty big overhang. Like, kind of, I don't know, more than I would think. So maybe I'll exaggerate that. You know, maybe the overhang goes this, you know, super far out. Right? And then the building comes in like here or something. And then we can really see the destruction of the roof. You know, we can have more of those little gaps between... So I'm kind of designing the experience, because to me, that's... I'm trying to... I don't know. I'm trying to capture... Again, I don't know if this is going to work. Why does my chest hurt? It's like a muscle pulled. It's not good. Test pain on stream? Hopefully I don't die on stream. I think I'm okay. But, you never know. Okay. But yeah, I kind of like this stuff. Just sort of figuring out these colors, adding some browns, adding maybe some darker colors, some warmth in here. Don't exactly know. Again, feels like it. I'm just figuring out what I want to communicate and how. But anyway, let's continue with the overall vibe of it, because that's more important for me. So I don't want to communicate details. But I do like the idea of, like, we have this brown... farmland, right? We have a nice sky with these big mountains in the background. Nice big trees. Again, maybe I'm not liking the colors here, actually. No, I think it's fine so far. And then here we can get a little bit... And again, the forms are really simple, so it's not like there's, you know, a lot to, like... The drawing isn't that hard, I feel like, at least on this one. You know, obviously, again, I'm not trying to make it exactly like it, but I'm just trying to get some basic forms. And figure out, like, okay, maybe there's some dark shapes in the middle. And maybe these dark shapes contribute to some of that disrepair. Is that the right word, disrepair? I think it is. The dilapidated look. You know, and maybe this, we want to put a shadow here. You know, right now in the painting, or in the photo, right, this is like the light side here, which is okay, but all of the disrepair is in the shadow. And like, if I were a filmographer or director, right, you would want, to me anyway, you'd want to highlight, you'd want to show, like, spotlight the disrepair. So I'm actually thinking we take the colors and we kind of flip them. We say, okay, what if there's some light here? And what if this stuff was in shadow? Right? Maybe the sun wasn't exactly like that in this time. You know, and of course we can take these darker colors. I don't know. This is all an experiment for me. Also this, there's like a foundation here. I don't know what I'm gonna do with the... And then with this, I want some overhang. Now, I don't know what's actually over here. Oh, just another building. See, I'm not going to put that building. I'm not going to put that building at all. But I do like all the little grove of trees and stuff. But the trees are a little bit scarce, so I'm gonna put them in a way that makes it feel scarce. There's a big shrub over here. You know, there's some sticks and twigs in here. I'm trying to go kind of quick, just to get the vibe. How do I show, you know, these things here? Which I think by making this whole thing darker. And then there's like, you know, little bright spots. And also red, I guess, because it can be like the roof is showing through. You know, what if we put like a giant hole in the roof, you know? Just like a little bit, with some of those beams sticking across. Again, doesn't have it in the photo, but like... Again, I feel like if we were communicating this verbally to someone, we would be like, oh, the roof has holes in it, and we'd leave it at that, and like, your brain would fill in, like, what does that mean? And then this is kind of what you might envision, right? Is like, oh, there's these... you know, giant holes where the roof has been torn off and it's falling apart. I do think the chimneys, we can keep that. But yeah, this is going to be a little bit of a different stream because it's all an experiment. We talked about this a little bit last time as well. We talked about how some artists, when they do plein air paintings, they end up making the place that they painted look way cooler, or just way more lively, or more like the place than the place. And I think that's, in some ways, that's my goal. I don't actually think I'm going to achieve it today, but, you know, it's like... And I think that's a cool goal in some ways, because that to me is what communicating is all about, right? I mean, it's the difference between, like, info dumping a whole bunch to the point where, like, the person doesn't even know what to make of it, versus, like, hand selecting the experience. So you're like, oh, we are on the same page, right? You captured what I was also paying attention to. And I don't know, that to me feels really cool. Like, you might think of this if you were here, and I don't know, obviously everybody would think of something differently, but, like, maybe the thing you notice is, like, you know, the beautiful landscape being contrasted against these falling apart buildings, right? So maybe that's the thing you want to focus on, right? So you up the landscape beauty, you sort of emphasize that, you put these massive mountains in the distance, and then you really bring in those, decaying buildings in here, which I think is cool. And this building has a lot of it too, right? And actually, the side of this building, it almost looks like teeth, which I think is a really neat effect. And everything's very patchworky. Actually, the roof kind of comes downward. Which I do kind of like the darker shapes under here. And then, of course, we get some of those blue lines from the... Anyway, I really like this scene. It's cool because it does, I don't know, it feels like it gives me quite a bit to focus on. There's a little bit of, like, grayish weirdness down here, which is kind of cool. And to really show that, like, this reddish stuff. Ah, thank you for the follow! Wait, did my alerts not go off? Or maybe am I delayed? Wait, what's happening? I see it says you followed, but I don't see an alert. Maybe my stream is broken. Anyway, thank you for the follow. Maybe the bot... I don't know. I don't actually know what's going on. I was gonna say maybe the bot, but I don't use a bot for alerts. It's just an alert thing. Anyway. So yeah, I'm trying to make this look kind of disrepaired. I think also emphasizing these top ledges would be neat. I don't know. Does that look like a decaying building? Kinda. Maybe some more gray in the foreground. Some messy lines here. What else types of things do I think about? I mean, this isn't neat. These little window shutters up here, I think, are cool. I'm gonna put them warm. And not as much contrast, because it's not the main thing, right? It's not the thing that I completely think about. Maybe there's another window over here. We should probably put in one of the trees sort of on the side. You know, again, it doesn't have to be exactly the same, because it's more about, like, the feeling, you know? And it's like, wow, Streamlabs is behind. Seriously, that is so weird. I don't know what's going on. That is very bizarre. Also, hi, Reed Kreiner. Streamlabs was super behind. Luckily, I'm actually watching chat right now, so I'm catching things when they happen, not because of anything, not because of the sound. You know. I don't know how extreme I want this to be. I don't think it needs to be very extreme. Something like that. Some sort of tree. And maybe there's some houses back here that are less important, right? I think that's not a bad plein air. First virtual plein air of the day. And there's a road. I don't know. I don't think I want to paint the road. Maybe I'll do like a gray-blue or something. But yeah, Reed Kreiner, how are you? Is this a sidewalk? Actually, that is kind of a cool feature. The sidewalk that is completely overgrown by debris. So you have this like light material, and then you have a brown material, which is dirt. And then you have the grass. So you have this like a band. Oh, I'm okay just ignoring my homework until class. Nice. There. I like this. I think the colors could still use an emphasis. You know, like when I look at this building, what do I notice? You know, I really notice the red brick. So maybe boom. How's it going, RD Draws? So I really notice the red brick. So maybe I add a few of those in here. Especially around, like, the edges. Maybe like that. Because the brick is actually surprisingly nice looking. Even though it's still kind of in disrepair. Like, the building's falling apart, but the bricks kind of look nice. So maybe I put in some of the bricks there. This building feels like the shingles are the big selling point, so I want to put those, sketch some of those in. They're a little grayer and darker though, so let's. And again, it doesn't have to be, but I'm just trying to think about like what do I notice? Again, without going into like detail. There's a dark shadow here. But also, there's a motion here. If I look at this roof, I notice it almost like us the water lines, right? So I don't want to actually put too much time making the shingles go across because it actually feels like they're hanging down, right? They're sort of have these little holes and things, but you have these sort of vertical lines of these discolorations. You know, like there's some brownish color, then there's like a weird bluish color, you know, a different color here, and you have like these different streaks of color, which I feel like is interesting. And then there's like a rigid top, and I think this is going to be good for the plein air. For this one. For those just tuning in, I'm doing some virtual plein air painting, trying to sort of capture, instead of just like the way that I would normally use reference, which is I draw basically whatever I want from imagination, and then I go and find references that like supplement it, right? I think the best example I can give of that, of the way I normally use references, is actually to use an example of something made up. So like, the dragon example is good, although I don't really paint much dragons, but, you know, it'd be like if I wanted to paint a dragon, I might do an initial sketch for composition, and I might get the fire in there and make it look all cool. But then I'm like, well, I don't know how to paint a dragon, so like, okay, dragons have scales, let me go find some scaly creatures. They have wings, let me go find things with wings, like birds. Or maybe they're more reptilian, and I want to go get some reptile references, right? Oh, I also need fire references, so I go and get flames, right? and then I kind of piecemeal them together and like study those things and apply them to what I'm drawing. This is different in that it's more of me trying to like, you know, it's like wandering around in your neighborhood and saying, oh, this is really, you know, it's like a record almost of like you're basically being a photographer and saying what is interesting, what is the thing I want to focus on. Except with art, you can play that up even more, or with you know, painting, you can play that up even more, because you can leave things out, you know, that like you can photograph something and just ignore something else, right? Like I don't have to, unlike a photo, I can take a building of this picture without getting this thing in there, right? This metal structure. I can just leave that out if I want. And I think that's neat. I want to see what happens if I come in here with a little bit of warmth. Oh, this is another opportunity to go bold with the window. There's a little bit of a frame. There. I think that's good. What about the siding? Does this feel... Does it feel like it's being sort of old and dilapidated? Also, this is a very pixely, because it's very low resolution. Iron Matt! Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the sub. That's extremely generous of you. I appreciate it. Hope you're doing well today. Okay, there's that. So this is a good... I think this is a good representation of the thing that I'm drawing. Even though, obviously, I'm leaving a lot out. I think I got the gist of it. Actually, I do like these holes under here. I didn't see that before. I feel like if I were actually in the scene, I would have noticed. If I was actually, like, walking through here, because my perspective would have been different. But having some little darker spots, you know, the windows in here, they can poke through. Again, I don't want to put these too bright, because actually, they probably don't even need to be there. Because we have plants in the foreground. But yeah, thank you so much for the sub, Matt. I really appreciate it. I actually kind of like that farmland here, too. Maybe we'll get some of that in there. Sort of getting that vibe. I feel like that's what plein air painting's all about. Again, I still think the describing things is the best way. Like, if you were to, you know, go on vacation, and then you were to try to tell your friend, like, what you did. That, to me... is like that's what you should focus on. Not everything, right? It's not every photo you took, but it's like what's the highlights, or like what, you know. Anyway, I think this is neat. Yeah, let's do another. Okay, so back to Map Crunch. Do we have another Street View open? Okay, this is Map Crunch. If you guys don't know what Map Crunch is, it's basically just Google Earth, but you can travel and go random places, and then you can paint them if you want, and you can be like, oh, is this something I'm interested in painting, right? Like, what's interesting about this? Actually, it is very dry looking, which is kind of neat. I don't think I want to paint it, though. But if anybody wants to paint along, once I find a location, I will link it in chat. I'm kind of rapid firing these out. I don't want to spend more than like 40 minutes on each. Maybe architecture, right? Some stuff like this, it could be a fun place to paint too. Like this one in particular, I think is interesting because there's a vibe from having been in places kind of like this. Oftentimes, especially if you're driving by, you can see these like lines from when it's mowed, and they kind of sweep over the landscape and like this really like there's a lot of motion to it. It's hard. I don't really feel like it comes across through this. Whereas like this scene doesn't capture that at all to me if I were like to paint that. But this, how it kind of goes along the ridge and there's sort of this movement, I think that's neat. And I think that is a type of scene that I can't just paint what's in the image to capture that. I have to like exaggerate the, you know, it's almost like you're doing a caricature of the place, right? You're taking the things that you notice and you're exaggerating them, and then everything else you can sort of make smaller or downplay. Maybe it's with color, maybe it's with scale, whatever it is. And so there's definitely some... And I think this is a good example. I mean, it's a little bit of a boring scene probably for most people. But I think that's almost what makes it a good plein air subject. It's also what I think makes somebody like James Gurney such a great artist and painter, is that he does exactly what I'm trying to do today. I probably not do it very well. But he does exactly that, right? Like he will paint some alleyway with a garbage can in it, and it'll be like the most beautiful alleyway and the most beautiful garbage can you've ever seen. And you're like, oh my gosh, that just... He's like... You feel like it's more the scene than the scene he actually painted, right? The scene he painted is something you would pass by and never give a second glance to. But the way he paints it is like, that's the subject of this painting, right? It's just, it feels important. It feels like he just told you a story about this place and you were captivated, right? That to me is such a cool, that's like the goal. I want to be like, you know, here's this boring looking field, but like, what is it, you know? And so hopefully, I don't know, that's my plan today, is try and do like one thumbnail or one quick sketch that gets across a feeling that is maybe, you know, not immediately obvious or something from the thing you're looking at. I don't know. I kind of expect to fail in that plan today. I do not do much of this. This is so out of my comfort zone. Not comfort zone. It's out of my like, it's not my strong suit. Let's put it that way. Although maybe it is. I don't know. This is one of those weird skills where like part of me has I mean, because I don't think I did this poorly. Some of my lines and stuff are not great, but whatever. But like, a lot of what I do, funny enough, does feel somewhat adjacent to this, where it's like I do practice simplifying and getting the vibe of a place quite a bit, even though I'm not being particular about details. And I do think there's an overlap there to like that in plein air painting, where like, it's not about painting everything you see. It's about asking yourself like what's important and then making sure that's the thing that you paint. Thank you for the follow, Wixart. Hope you're doing well today. Okay, so the thing I noticed about this painting, and also here I didn't link it. Let me link this. Share, copy. There. That's the link. If you want that spot, you can obviously go, you know, you can move around and paint the thing you want to see. You know, maybe you go down the trail a bit. Oh, like, that's cool. A little rock pile. And actually, I didn't even see this here. But, like, look, there's, like, a little vineyard thing. Like, right? This is what I like about this. Is that if we were all here together on, like, a field trip, right? Everybody would paint something different, because some people would be like, what a weird pile of rocks, you know? Or bricks. And then maybe someone else would stand up at the top of the hill and paint the long row of the grapevines or whatever, or the trees, whatever. I don't know what kind of plant they are. You know, maybe someone else would be, you know, painting the close-up of a corn. Maybe someone else would do a zoom out. Maybe someone would stand at the bottom of the trail and they'd paint, like, you know, this sort of vista here of, like, the landscape. Or maybe someone would look up and paint the other people painting, right? Like, and it's sort of this, like, what is it that you think is interesting? And that's what I love about this is, I mean, you're still limited, right? You're limited by elevation and where the cameraman went, because we aren't, unfortunately. Like, I can't go walk in the middle of the field, unfortunately. And so, like, I can't paint, like, the other side of this tree, you know? And so there are things that, like, I will never be able to reach, but there's a lot of stuff that I could paint, right? And I just think that's cool that, like, you know, there's gonna be trying to find something interesting in whatever it is. I think it's just a good exercise. Honestly, it's probably just a good... It's very much stop and smell the roses. That's basically the entire exercise. Stop and smell the roses. Figure out what are the hypothetical roses that you want to smell. Like, what is it? Somebody who I immediately popped into my mind with this is there's another streamer, James B. Barrow. He's been doing, or he did for a while on, I've only been seeing them on Instagram, but he's been doing these little short, like, reels where he goes out with his camera in nature, or not even his camera, with his little paint watercolor pad in nature. I think he does use his camera, though. And he finds things like, what's under this rock? And he'll, like, you know, really stop and just, like, zoom in. It's not always, like, macro photography or whatever you call it. You know, he's not always zooming in, but oftentimes it's, like, finding a pattern, you know, on the back of a beetle, or finding, you know, a little tiny flower in, like, the middle of nowhere that's, like, in a dirt field, right? And so he'll kind of, like, zoom in and, like, it's sort of this stop and, like, you know, if you were just walking by, you wouldn't notice it. And then he's stopping and, like, painting it and being like, here's the subject for today. And I think it's cool. It's just it's a fun way to do it. But yeah. Okay, so when I see this thing swooshing around. Right? I see something like this. I don't know why, but my brain's going like this, right? It's like this big movement in the scene. You know, there's stuff back here, and I'm just going to jump straight into color for this. The sky, you know, again, do we need to make the sky the exact color? No. I actually think I'm going to upplay the colors here of, like, the greens and the yellows along these sides. So, like, I don't know. This could be a cooler green, maybe? I actually don't know what color I want to choose for this. But let's start with this. And then these are very, like, grayish. They're not very light. Or they're not very prominent in the scene. But then there's, like, this, right? There's a lot of this stuff happening. It's almost like... Right, you have these big swooshing landscapes. It's almost like, I mean, you can even put darker shapes in here, right? To really show the, you know, and of course there's, like, a path here, which I think is neat because it kind of follows this ridge. And actually, some of these are a little bit grayer. And maybe we even add, like, another swoosh in here, right? Like a... Because this is kind of, like, when I've experienced places like this is what I always notice. I always notice, like, the long, winding the fields, the way it's like it's mowed in this sort of, or cut, I guess, probably. It's I guess mowing is cutting, but anyway, it's the field is so like mowed in this very particular pattern, you know, very like you know, what's the right word? Like in the same sort of way, right? It's very like methodically mowed, you know, one stripe then the next. It just efficiently, I guess, and it just always has like this dynamicness to it, which is, again, from this image, it doesn't really even show that, right? And I think that's what I want to get. Some of these trees are a little bit red. There's some variety in the colors. These aren't that bright of trees. Actually, this is even more yellowish than that. And then in the foreground, we have lots of blue grays. But I want to really emphasize this perspective, right? So I don't actually know how to do that, but, you know, lots of perspective lines, I guess. Sort of a foreshortening here. Trying to make these curves more, I don't know, curvy. Also, there's like a little, copse. No, that's not the right word. Just a little bit of trees down here that sort of go along the same form. A lot of overlap. But again, I don't know if this is gonna turn out right or turn out good, but I think it will. I mean, I'm already liking it. You know, it's, to me, it feels, it's having the movement that I want, right? And that's what I'm trying to capture. Just that movement. Like, yeah. But yeah, if anybody wants to paint along, feel free. Or if you're just working on your own thing, I'd love to see what you're doing. There are some things here. And again, I'm not trying to make it, like, this is not a study, right? This is a what is the interesting thing about this? And let's paint it. I mean, I'm obviously paying attention, right? So it's hard to not call it a study, but I think the purpose is more to capture rather than to learn in some ways. It's to communicate. I don't know. I guess everybody would have a different... I'm sure everybody has a different goal when they do plein air painting. But I don't believe for an instant that everybody's goal is to, like, treat it as a study, right? Most people just love the painting and they want to go out and paint cool things. And so they go out and they paint cool things that they enjoy, you know? It's like a way to explore and record it. And actually, there was this this artist... Gosh, what's his name? He's a Mexican artist from, like, the... early 1900s. No, maybe even before that. Was it 1800s? I don't remember, but I watched a video on this guy, and he basically painted his city the way that, I don't want to say the way he saw it, but the way he thought about it, right? And so he saw, like, this pristine landscape being, you know, like, industry was coming into his neighborhood and ripping up the environments, and, like, you know, so he painted the real places that he experienced, but he kind of did a twist on it to where it's like, here is... But it wasn't all in, like, in a bad way, right? It was like, here's the train choo-chooing through the environment, you know? And, like, he would show, like, this might be what it looks like. And it wasn't like all doom and gloom, but it was just like, this is how he kind of, like, again, I don't like using the word see because it's not like literally that's what he saw, but like, you know what I mean. And I just think that's cool. It's like a record. It's like you're going around and it's like you're leaving a journal, right? And you're saying, day by day, I notice more businesses are coming into my environment, right? They're pushing out old businesses and new industries are coming in. And so what he did is he painted that. He painted that sort of hypothetical journal entry. And so when you look at his paintings, it's like a journal of the times, kind of, is sort of, he was experiencing it, but it was like not really the things, like it wasn't literally what he was seeing, but it's sort of how he felt, right? And I thought that's cool. Vex Jester, how's it going? And I just think that's a cool way to think about painting, or plein air painting in particular, because then it's like it's almost like you're going around and photographing some of the stuff that you find interesting. But it's not a photograph, and you're not trying to make it look like a photograph, but it's more like a journal entry. I just think it's such a cool, like, thinking about painting in that way, because it's one of the things that distinguishes it from other types of art, like photography, is you get to invent things a little bit more. I guess people do that with photography too. They, like, you know, plan their sets kind of, and they use props and they pose people in ways to, like, tell the story of the thing. But it's hard to, like, remove a building, right? If you have a building that's in the way of another building and you want to capture a building, you can't just, like, delete it. Are you working on some studies? I would call it more just virtual plein air painting. Less study, more of an exercise in figuring out what I want to paint, what is interesting about the environment, and then painting that thing and trying to make it clear it's about that, right? I could just paint this whole scene, but it's not clear what the, like, if you were in this scene, what is it that you would think is cool, right? Like, to talk about, or, you know, to demonstrate or to communicate. And to me, that's kind of what I love about plein air painting. It's sort of this, like, I wouldn't call it a study, because it's not always about, I mean, I think you do inevitably study when you have to observe something and, like, pay attention closely enough to communicate it. Like, I don't know how you can't not study it, but you might exaggerate things. You might intentionally make the form not accurate, because maybe you just, you know, like if you're a kid, for example, everything might feel larger than life. So if you were doing this, maybe you paint from that perspective and you exaggerate things to, like, show what this would look like through the eyes of a kid, right? And so maybe it's not about making proportions correct, right? You're not trying to study proportions. You're studying the thing that interests you, whether it's the color, the light, the size, right? It does. So to me, like, a scene like this, it might just look like a field, but I noticed the parallel mowing lines, the way they're this sort of long strip of land. If we go back up the hill here, also that was really cool. I love this walkway. Look at that. I guess that's what the stone pile is for, right? Yeah, very cool walkway. But yeah, if we go back up the hill here, very slowly apparently, I think this is cool because this is like the vertical stretch, right? We could paint this, right? We could paint this scene here, and it's nice. But looking down the long way, I think is cool because there's this big long strip of land, right? Mowed, all these parallel mow lines. It kind of wraps around this top of the hill that we're on. And that's kind of what I wanted to capture, because it's sort of, it might feel like the less interesting part, but I actually have, like, memories as, like, a kid of, like, or even as an adult, like, walking along places that are kind of like this. And so that's what I'm painting. So I don't know if I would call it a study, but it's virtual plein air painting. Just painting the stuff around me that I think is interesting. And in this case, I'm taking a virtual tour. So yes, part study, but that's not really the goal. There is an exercise in here, right? And the exercise is communication. The way I described it earlier, maybe you were here, I don't remember. But the way I described it earlier is, like, if you went on vacation and you were in a crowded area and, like, something stood out to you, and then you went home and tried to describe it to your friend, right? Like, you're not going to describe every single thing in this crowd, right? It's impossible. And so, like, what is it that you actually cared about to focus on, right? And what was the experience like? It's not about accuracy to everything around you, but it's more about... Yeah, it's definitely an exercise in composition, right? It's saying, what's my focal point? Which could be anything, right? I get to choose. That's the beauty of, like, if you're walking around outside, you know, you could go and stand on top of this to get a little elevation, you know? You could say, I really like this one tree. You know, it kind of stands out from the rest. And so maybe you exaggerate it, right? Maybe you like the little spiky bits on the tree that stick out and catch the light, so you make them really spiky, and you're like, this is my focal point, and it's going to be surrounded by this green texture. You know, you could plan a billion compositions, you know? What is the main focus from here or here? And, like, in this last one I did, and I'm not claiming I did it well, but I noticed that, like, this was, like, a really beautiful landscape with the mountains behind it. But these buildings sort of had this contrast of, like, being a little bit dilapidated and falling apart, right? I thought that was cool, so that's what I focused on. Obviously, there was stuff to my left and to my right, but, like, so I made the mountains bigger. I thought, you know, wouldn't it be cool? Like, that's the thing you're gonna notice, right? The beautiful mountains in the background, right? Sort of... everything is sort of backdropped against this beautiful skyline, and in the foreground you have these falling apart buildings. And so I just painted the buildings. I didn't put all the other stuff, right? So to me, this is very different than what I normally do, and this definitely could be called studying, but I think it's less about, like, getting the construction right, you know, and it's more about communicating a mood. And so, yeah, I hope... I don't know. I just think it's cool that, like... I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if thinking this way about painting is... I mean, it's probably not new to most people, especially if you're here in an art stream. But it probably is, you know, if you typically think of references as, like, this is how you paint something, this is different, because this is more... I mean, again, it's plein air. It's painting the thing in front of you. It's not... Yeah, anyway. So it's... Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm trying to capture here, is, like, this swooshiness here. Maybe exaggerate these hills. You know, push the lines a little bit more to really show, you know, the mowing pattern in here. You know, try to make these look a little parallel. Oh, these look nice. Thank you. Yeah, I'm having fun with them. Yeah, I'm having fun with them. Anyone's welcome to join along, by the way. I posted the links up top. I can post them again. I think that's it. Is that the right link? Yeah, so I posted the link to the places that I'm painting, and anyone is welcome to join along, or pick your own place. OMG. Also, OMG, Claire Obscure soundtrack. Let's go. Yeah, this is just like a random adventure video game music playlist, which I think is nice. It's not all video game music, but there is a lot of it. This grass is very thin, and I don't even know how to paint this. So there is, I guess there's definitely a study element in here, which is like, I don't know how to make this grass look thin and bare, right? How do I show the land, or the dirt poking through? And, like, I don't really know, and so I have to figure it out, and that's the study element, is like, how do I communicate it? But accuracy is not, right? I guess when I think of studies, I typically think of, like, accuracy, and I guess that's not what you have to study, but, or, like, understanding, right? It's not really understanding so much as I'm trying to figure out how to communicate something, which maybe is even a better goal for a lot of studies. I don't know. There's so many different ways to think about it, and no way is wrong. I don't think. Maybe some ways. Probably not. I also like the little bits of light poking through. The dappled light is nice, but I think my emphasis still wants to be on the... that sort of fluid motion. But yeah, how is everyone? Made in China, how are you? Vex Jester, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. But, like, you know, are there these dark lines in here? No, but I think... it might help show the... Like, I want to show that we're on top of a hill, right? That's also important. Even if you can't see it from this perspective, I want to try to communicate that we're on a hill. And so maybe I'll exaggerate this, right? Doing well, prepping for a busy holiday season and just working a ton. How about you? How have you been? I've been good. I haven't been I mean, I pretty much have the rest of this week off until Thanksgiving, and then I work Thanksgiving night. But yeah, I've been doing some holiday prepping, although I'm kind of waiting for the big after sale to see if, you know, I can get some stuff. But yeah, no, it's good. I ordered my holiday card. I knocked that out in just a couple days. Also, this big tree is kind of neat. There's like one big tree in here, which we could definitely make that a focal point. But yeah, I knocked out my holiday card, which I'm happy. You know, I thought I was gonna have to spend way longer on that, but I made it pretty simple this year. I still have some stuff to get for the holidays, but overall, it's good. Holiday season's a little stressful for me. I don't really like it too much. I mean, I like the time of year. I love the winter and the autumn, you know, late autumn and winter, you know, the colder weather. I love it. I love the cold weather. I'm looking forward to getting colder and snowy and just, I don't know, I love that. But at the same time, I don't like the hustle and bustle and buy every holiday and you need to spend a bunch of money. I don't like that. Yeah, yep. That was the holiday card with the graphic design stuff that I was working on a few streams ago, fumbling around with typography and didn't really know what I was doing, but it was fun. Definitely was fun. Okay, do I like this? I mean, I think this feels too... It feels too green. Some of the green is good. But some of it doesn't. I don't know. Does this feel right? I guess I could also come in here and maybe what I do is this. Like that. And then I come in here with the green and carve out spots. Like that. Maybe that's what I do. I don't know. I think this is a good one for this. I think it sort of tells the story that I want to tell, which is just having these hills. Are there any other traditions you're looking forward to for the end of the year? I mean, I just want it to be over. Like, again, I'm not a big fan of all the traditions and like gatherings. It's just a lot. It's too much for me. It's overstimulating a little bit. I do like the weather and I like the cozy vibes. And I like the gatherings themselves, kind of, but I don't like the planning for them. I don't like the, you know, the shopping and money aspect sucks. I don't know. I don't like that part of it. Also, maybe we can go a little bit brighter in here. Trying to think, how do I maybe add some green down here to sort of show the stuff that I think is interesting. Trying to think, like, how do I, you know, what do I emphasize? Maybe, I mean, these things aren't super green. I guess there's not much of a, maybe stuff like that. I don't know. I think this one's good. I think we can move on. God, yeah, I feel you. I feel like it's when I want to be a hermit and enjoy the exactly. Like, the winter is when I want to stay inside and bundle up and not have to, like, do a bunch of stuff. And, you know, I just, and it's like, nope, everything is telling me that I have to do stuff. And I don't know. I will say I do like doing stuff in the winter. It's too much. It's too much, like, required stuff. And it's funny because I might be more busy, hypothetically, in, say, the summer, but it doesn't feel mandatory. And that mandatoriness of it all, maybe not stresses me out, it just overwhelms me a little. Because it feels like a plan, right? And having a plan and, like, a calendar that's in the back of my mind, you know, and it's literally... it's on the calendar, whether or not I put it there. But, like, it's sort of there, and it's just one more thing to think about that I don't want to have to think about. But, again, it's not the actual amount of stuff that I have to do. It's more of the... It's inescapable, kind of. I don't know, it's hard. I was just trying to explain the mandatory thing to a friend and how it stressed me out. Yeah, it's just not a cozy, enjoyable feeling to me. Like, again, I have no issue actually doing the thing, right? If somebody, you know, were to, you know, let's say a week before some event was happening in the middle of summer, but I didn't know about it up until that week before, and someone's like, "Hey, I'm hosting a feast, you know, you're invited and you're welcome to bring something, you know, for the food." And it's like, great. I'll be there, happy to join, right? Like, that's not stressful because, one, I didn't know about it beforehand, and so you gave me plenty of time, but it wasn't too much time, and it was like, you know, it sort of, it didn't feel like I had to do something. I was allowed to say no, I still wanted to say yes, but, like, you gave me free will kind of thing. But holidays don't feel like that. It feel like you'd be the downer if you said no, you know? If, oh, sorry, I'm busy that night. Like, I don't get to say that, right? Or at least it doesn't feel that way. And I know I can, but it's still... Like, I don't really want to, because I do want to go. It's just, I don't like it that it feels mandatory. It's weird. I know that's a weird thing. It's hard to explain, because to someone who doesn't feel like that, you might have no idea what I'm talking about. Okay, let's do another plein air painting. So these were the first two we did. I like the scenes. I think I did an okay job at them. They bring a lot of They do. They do. Okay, let's do... another scene. Let's randomize it. Let's go. Let's see where it takes us. Why is this so large? Ooh, okay. Free up space. Hold on. That's annoying. Let me clear some of these other tabs. My computer is running out of space. Okay, but let's, okay. This is a nice place. I do like this place as, like, you know, compared to, like, another jungly place or, like, overgrown. There's a lot of moss, which I think is, you know, that's what I would focus on, I think, if I were drawing this. I wouldn't just draw the trees. So we could do this space. It's kind of neat. Let's keep going. Ooh, we got some beach. Another rundown wall. A lot of stuff. Oh, some rose bushes or something. Huh. Interesting space. Ooh, we got some water. We're on a boat. People are enjoying the view. It's nice. It's pleasant. What does that say? Ari. They're on a little cruise. Not really a cruise, but... Ooh, this is... See, I noticed this immediately. It's the mood. It's very cloudy and gray. And, like, if I were to paint this, say, compared to the thing I just painted, right, I might intentionally upplay the vibrancy of this one and downplay the vibrancy of this one. Right? Because... Wait, what's happening? Oh no, what did I do? Okay. So yeah, that's always fun, right? Those are options. I'm not gonna paint... Ooh, I like the lens flare in here. This is much fancier. This is kind of a neat building. I can't see much of it. It's not that neat. This is a neat building too. I do like the roofs here. They're very nice. Do I want to paint a fancy place? I mean, I don't just want to paint nature-y scenes, which I did paint one with architecture. Oh, this is nice. Very scenic, or idealist, whatever you call it. Nice scenery. A little bit of a quarry. Is that a quarry? No, maybe not. Could be. Probably not. This is kind of neat. I like this with the waterline here thing. Is that... Wait, no, this is the... Wait. Hold on. Yeah, that's a reflection. Never mind. I was like, what... Wait, what am I looking at here, though? There's a break in the camera, right? So there's a camera aberration type thing where that's distorting it. But what's happening here? I do not understand what I'm looking at. The water line is here, right? Like, this is the water line because this is clearly a reflection. So what is happening here? That's also the water line. It must just be distorted, and like the way it's stitched together is all weird and blurry. But that must just also be the water line that continued. I don't know. That's very weird. It's hard to... like, we have random artifacts floating, right? That's... because this thing is, like, taken as while it's moving, and it's all stitched together. What draws you to it? I mean, I'm kind of trying to talk through that when I see it, right? Like, if I just go to a place... And it's not really about what draws me to it, but it's more like... I think there can be interesting... I mean, I think... my theory, and this is sort of maybe more of a philosophy in some ways about life and less about painting, but I don't think it really matters what you do or what you look at or who you talk to. I think in theory there will be things interesting about whatever it is, right? I don't think... And you know, like, you know, some people are like, I don't like that type of movie. I think if you want to, you can find things to enjoy about it. Maybe you want to focus on the set design. Maybe you want to focus on the storytelling devices, or maybe it's the characters, or maybe it is the story, right? Maybe it's the... Like, it may not be your favorite thing ever, but, like, surely there is something you can find to appreciate about it, right? And it might take some work, right? Some things are very hard to appreciate, and so you have to, like... Or it doesn't even have to be appreciation. It can just be, like, interest or, like, fascination, right? You could have, like, a morbid curiosity about something, right? It's one of the reasons why I had talked a couple streams ago about, like, scams. You know, obviously they're terrible. They take advantage of people, and they can ruin lives, right? They're completely negative in terms of their... you know, how they affect the world. There's nothing good about scamming, but they are kind of fascinating from like the human psychology perspective, and like how people can sort of go on autopilot and be tricked by things that to most of us are like totally obvious, and like how even you could have that same sort of brain wiring and you could also be like, I love that part of it. So anyway, so for environments it's kind of the same. Like it might be, you know, I noticed this is like a weird artifact here, but I think the purple and the green is really beautiful, right? That's something I noticed. I also think the, you know, the contrasting shapes of the variety of plants, right, is quite interesting. You have a lot of small plants, you have some big tree things, you have these that look like little pinwheels, right? All the different shapes and varieties. So if I were to paint the scene, maybe I wouldn't paint every single tree, but I might intentionally paint one or two of each different shape. You know, I'd paint one of these plants, and I'd paint some of the big plants with the big leaves. I'd paint some of these with the little, you know, the palm leaves, and like all the different shape language that you can use to describe a complex scene. Or maybe I like this, right? I think this is neat, how you have right here is this overgrown, it almost looks like a jungle, and then here it's like almost barren. I think that's a neat contrast. Maybe you want to get a view of that and paint, you know, this scene, and you want to frame it with the jungle. Like, you know, I think there's interesting things about it kind of wherever you look. Maybe you like, you know, that just the top of these are rusted, and you're like, I wonder why just the top of these are rusted, right? Are they just older and all the others have been replaced? Or maybe when it rains and cars drive by, maybe they splash up and these plants shield the bottom, so only the top ones are getting wet or something. I don't know. I have no idea why they're like that, but like, that's kind of interesting, right? Like, maybe we could research it, or maybe just an interesting subject to paint. So I think I can kind of like anything. There's always something. And again, sometimes it takes some searching. Sometimes it's curiosity, and you just want to paint something that's interesting. You know, you're like, I don't know what's in these barrels, or these aren't barrels. I don't know what these are, but let's just paint them because it's, you know. I think that's, especially with this type of thing, like plein air painting, that's a way you can do it. Obviously, most of my painting isn't that way, right? Most of the time when I'm painting, I am not doing this, right? I am making things up. I'm, you know, literally just coming up with stuff, making it up as I go. And then I might go and get some references, but yeah, so it's sort of, I think that's what draws me to a painting, or really anything. There's always something. I mean, this is the same thing with like, it's sort of, I have different perspectives I can shift between, or I try to, right? If I'm looking at like a masterwork, I might really want to appreciate the, you know, maybe their brushwork, or maybe their technique, right? Maybe it's just the nuance in their colors, right? There's going to be something that a master does that I can appreciate. I think that's pretty obvious. But what about a total beginner? Maybe I'm not going to appreciate their careful line work, but maybe I'll appreciate the, you know, the fun idea that they had, right? The thing, I can appreciate the fact that they are enjoying painting and learning this thing that we both love, right? Like, there are always things to appreciate. You can look at a child's drawing and see the joy in it and sort of see the world through their eyes. Like, that's cool. I don't have to appreciate in the same way that I'm going to appreciate a master artist, right? And so this is the same, this is why I feel, and again, I'm not immune to this, but I feel like I'm pretty okay about not getting down on myself when I look at other people's art, because I can just pick the thing that I appreciate, not in like a self-doubty way, right? Not like, oh my gosh, they do it so well and I don't. But it's just like, what do they, you know, it's more about the painting or something, right? It could be the circumstance. There's a lot of things that could lead, I don't know, it's just, so it's kind of like I just hit my, just unplugged my headphones. But I just kind of pick and choose, I guess. Like, if I see something that's interesting, I'll be like, that's the thing that's interesting, you know? I don't have to, like, if I hear bad news in the media, I don't have to immediately go to, oh my gosh, the world's turning to crap. I can be like, okay, You know, like, I get to choose about what I focus on, right? I'm in control of that, almost always. I mean, obviously it doesn't exclude the other stuff, and it doesn't mean the other stuff doesn't exist, but, like, there's a practice in learning to pick out things, you know, find the good in a story, right? Sort of, you know, I mean, again, I don't want to get too, like, political here, but, like, there's just ways to view things that I think you can find stuff to appreciate, always. Or almost always. Maybe there are things that are unappreciable. There's probably some stuff. Like this. You know, is this interesting? Probably not. But, like, you know, it's kind of, you know, it's some sort of, you know, old and new road with the cracks and the pavement over. I don't know. Again, I mentioned it earlier, but I think James Gurney is really good at this in painting. You know, he can find some mundane sidewalk or an alleyway with trash in it, or an old garbage can lined up on the side of the road for Sunday pickup or whatever. And he'll just paint it, and it looks amazing. And it's like he focuses on the things that he cares about. I think he does exactly what I'm talking about really, really well. Right? He might go in this scene, and, you know, if you were to put, like, you know, 20 student artists in this very location, and you were to ask them to paint it, and then you were to also put James Gurney there, he's gonna be the dude who's like, I'm gonna paint this. You know? Everyone's painting this beautiful landscape because it's gorgeous, and he does, like, a masterful painting of a weed, you know? And it's like, that is such a beautifully painted weed. It's amazing. And you're like, it's so beautiful the way he'll contrast the colors and, like, look at the rocky environment with this life poking out, and, like, he tells, like, an entire story with the colors and the design. I think that's really cool, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do today, is, like, you know, not just paint the obvious thing, you know? I'm not just gonna take the beautiful sunset, you know? But it's like, maybe there's a, you know, oh, look, children playing, right? Like, that's kind of cute. You know, you could focus on the rundown look of some of this place, or the dirt, you know, the lack of, you know, pavings. But then you look at this scene and you see, like, this kid is holding probably their brother, right? And you see these children playing, and, like, there's something nice about this. And, like, I don't know, you don't have to take that away. You could focus on these trees. You could focus on the interesting, you know, way this thing is patched together with multicolored wood. Right? There's lots of things you could focus on, and nothing's right or wrong. But it really is just like a stop and smell the roses kind of thing. Like, this place is so lively. What the heck? This is like, my city has not that many people in it, but certainly more than this town looks like it has, right? We have multi-story buildings, we have much higher density, and yet this is so lively. I think that's super cool. Like small town vibes. You know, this has, like, peak small town vibes. Like, I feel like it'd be hard if you weren't in a small town, like, in the US, especially if you're, like, a big city. Have I heard of The Created Act by Rick Rubin? I haven't read it. I know, I listened to an interview with him talking about that book, but also just making art and stuff in general. I've listened to a few podcasts with Rick Rubin on them as a guest, and where they talk about stuff. But why do you ask? So no, I haven't read the book itself. I'm not sure I want to. I should, just because people bring it up, and it's... Yeah, he... Yeah, I mean, I could see the similarity there. I think there's a good outlook. Like, I do think that's a... And again, I don't always have this outlook, right? I try. I'm not, like, a paragon of this view or anything. Like, I'm not somebody who exercises it perfectly. Like, you know, I can get pissed off or annoyed or nostalgic and, you know, of things long in the past, you know, Well, no. So I listened to an interview with Rick Rubin, and at the end, like he had a view which I agreed with, or I thought was a really nice view, which is like, do the things, if it works for you, it's good, and do it. And I'm like, maybe. And then he started going like down sort of like an alternative medicine route, and like sort of, like almost like advocating for it. It was a weird take. Let's just say he got into some weird, like, not very sound logical arguments about like I think at the core he started off with a point, which is like, if you're sick and you take something and it works, like that's great, and like maybe you can try it next time too or something. But like he was completely ignoring like basically things at scale. Like he felt like he was kind of ignoring like if there's obvious data to say some otherwise, he's still gonna do it because it worked once for. I don't know. It felt like bad medical advice, kind of. And I'm like, like I like your ideas on creativity, but maybe not on this. And I don't know. I can't summarize his entire view right here because it was a while since I listened to it. But he got into a little bit of like woo-woo-y stuff, and I'm like, I liked his positive outlook on stuff, and he was, very cheery all the while. He wasn't like, hating on other like traditional medicine or anything, but I don't know, it was just a weird take. I don't know that, hopefully that doesn't come through in his book, because I think his book is about creativity and, his experiences with sort of that. Yeah, it just was a little bit like off-putting as like him as a person. But again, I don't really care. Like if he has good advice about creativity and making good stuff, then do it. And I think in some ways, oh, this is kind of cool. Look at that. That's like a massive power pole. One Winged Hawk, how's it going? Memories of murder. Place. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing, right? Like, take what resonates and what doesn't. Like, to me, it's not always. I think there's a lot of stuff that can be like. You can, by shifting your perspective, you can come to a different conclusion, and I think that stuff's great, right? A lot of art is that way, right? Just like I was talking about, what you want to focus on, right? You might see a place with roadkill and. It looks like a swamp with plastic bags and trash in here. But you can also, like, look at a different perspective and be like, that's really beautiful, right? Like, a lot of times art is just sort of finding the stuff that resonates with you. And I think that's a really good message. But I think when it comes to things like other people's areas of study, like more objective things that we can measure and test for, it's not really about what resonates with you. Sometimes there are things that are true and there are things that are false. And just because something feels right doesn't make it right. And that's where I think I more disagree with like Rick Rubin on. Not that it matters if I disagree with him or not, but like, it's. I do agree with like if something resonates with you, like, it can be an interesting pursuit, especially a creative pursuit. And you should make the stuff that is interesting to you, and that's the main guiding principle. But there's also things that are, we know are dangerous, and things that we know aren't dangerous. And, like, just because you have a vibe and it doesn't make you happy, like, I don't know, it just feels a little bit like an area that I'm not super into, but, I do. I mean, he has a lot of experience with creativity and making things and seeing them through to the end, and like building awesome projects and helping other people build awesome projects, right? So like he obviously has good advice on that stuff, and it's probably worth reading, if not just for the Hey Hazel, how's it going? I am doing well. I am rambling a little bit, but we are doing some plein air painting. I'm sort of looking for another place to paint. We did like a field, and we did a like a little dilapidated barn area. Just some naturey stuff. Oh wait, when did I bring this painting up? I like this. There's some neat stuff here. Also, look at that. That's cool. I actually like this scene. This little alleyway here. Even these rocks. There's something about this that I like. See, like, I like... So this is really cool. I don't know if this is because we're in a rock pile. No, we're not. Look. Also, this wall is super cool. Okay, I know what I'm gonna paint now. So I wanna do a painting of like an alleyway kind of, but capturing some of this rock wall and these stones. Now I'm gonna have to do some major edits to the environment, but I wanna, like, this is such a good material. I don't know, just so cool. I think it's cool. On my part, usually I'm cooking dinner. Nice. Or as usual, you're cooking dinner. I mean, it's dinner time for a lot of people. I don't think it's like... Vexchester says... or wait, okay, so what... One Winged Hawk says, I have that book. Never got to read it. Yeah, I mean, it's a book that a lot of people recommend, and I do think it's probably... You know, especially as someone who talks about art and communicates about it a lot. I do try to read this stuff that are popular, just so I can, like, if I have an opinion on it, I can, you know, I don't want to, like, state that it's a good or a bad book, or, you know, I can't do a critique of a book if I've never read it, right? And so I don't have an opinion on the book. All I know about Rick Rubin is the stuff I've heard him talk about on a podcast, and, you know, I liked some of his takes on the creative stuff, but some of his views on life were a little bit extreme for me, maybe. Vexchester says, I don't think it's like the gold standard for creativity, but I don't think any one thing is. But it's fun to hear his perspective. Yeah, I think there's probably... I mean, again, there's always, like I was saying, there's always going to be something to take away from it, you know? And so, it's probably worth reading. I mean, you know. Yeah. Okay, let's do this. So I'm going to share this link to you guys. If you want to paint this scene, you can. Also, I'm not exactly sure what I'm going to focus on here, but let's... Actually, I think I do know what I'm going to focus on. I'm going to kind of focus on this stuff. I mean, or I could focus on this. I mean, this is nice. You didn't mean to pull from the paint? No, it's really right along the line of this topic, right? It's very much in theme. Because it's sort of that... I mean, it really does... Oh, I didn't mean to paste it there. Because this is very much like we are just navigating this world digitally and figuring out what we want to paint. And that's kind of how that works, you know? This is too big. There. That'll work. Okay, so, whoops. I just did something. Alright, so what do I like about this? I like... So I think I'm going to change the perspective a little bit. Maybe not. I don't know. I like this wall. I think it's neat. I also like... Like, I'm not trying to make it exactly like the thing, right? I'm trying to capture, just like we were talking about earlier, I'm trying to capture the thing that I find interesting. And I think the thing that's interesting is this little wall here. Right? There's like a gate. But I also really like... Yeah, maybe we go like this. I don't know. I don't think I like this path that I'm making. See, now I'm not sure. Do I want to do like a wall with the frame here? I don't know. What I also like is this path here on the side. So maybe I can go back to Map Crunch. I do really like this path here, and like the way these rocks on the side of the road are kind of chunky, and there's like this little rock pile here. You know, the asymmetry here I think is quite neat. And actually, maybe that's a better reference. Whoops. Maybe we do this. Maybe I cobble this together. Because, again, I'm not trying to paint this exact look. Well, I kind of am. But I'm trying to capture, like, the vibe of the place. Right? I like that this rock... Oh, thank you so much for the raid, Commissar Skull. How's it going? Welcome, Raiders. How are you? Hey, how's it going, Commissar? Hope you're doing well. Alright, so what I like about this is this giant... It's not a giant rock pile, but these rocks do feel like... It's neat. I don't know. They're neat. And I'm going to kind of exaggerate them. They are little rocks, but there's a lot of them. And I kind of like that. And I also like that this is like a... There's like this neat fence here. I like that. And then this fence has this little wall here. And behind the fence, there's a lot of brightness, right? And so maybe we, again, even though we're not really at the right perspective anymore, we can put some of that brightness back there. And then down here, right, as we go further down the road, there's like this super green space. Like almost just crazy green. We're making some practice. Nice. Yeah, we're doing some plein air painting today. Or virtual plein air painting. And it's really a lot of fun. It's very unlike what I normally do. It is a weird mix between like study and not. I mean, I don't want to call it a study because that's not my purpose. Although there is a practice, there is a skill that I am practicing, and that skill is to take something that is complex, figure out what you like about it, and paint that thing, right? Communicate that simplified, zoomed-in version of the thing, and say, this is what my image is about, right? It's not about all the stuff around it. It's not, you know, maybe you exaggerate the colors, maybe you exaggerate one thing or another. And I think that is a neat way to do it. So that's kind of what I'm trying to do today. I do want to get a sense that there's different... Yeah, it's just... It'd be like if you're walking down, you know, in your town, wherever you live, and you know, there's lots of people walking around, there's lots of stuff happening, and you get back and you're like, you know what, that thing I saw was really cool, you know? Maybe that was a neat little storefront with all the little knickknacks and stuff. And, like, maybe you didn't even think about it at the time, but, like, that's the thing you remember. In some ways, that's the thing I'm painting. I'm not painting everything in it, the whole scene. I'm just, like, picking. Right? It's like I'm walking through. I guess much like a photographer, right? I'm walking down in the world, and you're like, that's something interesting. Let me photograph it, and let me really focus in on it. And there's some cars down here parked in. Now there's also lighting, right? We don't have a lot of lighting. But I really like these rocks here on the side, and that's kind of what I want to focus on. The rocks with all the... You know, there's little rocks here. And, like, I'm not really painting the exact... we talked about this last stream, but, you know, my goal which I don't think I'm going to achieve, is you know, to make the place feel in some ways more like the place than the place does, you know? It's like if two people were sharing the same experience, they could both just like take pictures of random stuff, but to take a picture of a thing that is like, wow, that really captures what I was also focused on, right? And the entire, you know, one photo that encompasses an entire vibe. Um, like HD in sports. No, no, not that. Almost the opposite. Almost the opposite of HD in sports match. I mean, maybe. Maybe I don't know what you mean by that. Because sometimes there's... Like, I'm not trying to capture all the detail. Yeah, I'm thinking more like an exaggeration, you know. It's like a gesture in some ways, where, you know, like if you see someone laughing on the street, does it look better than reality? Okay, I didn't know that that's what you were going. Yeah, in some ways better than reality. Like, not better as in like more high definition though. But like if you see someone laughing, you can feel the joy or the funniness of the thing they're. You may not even know what they're laughing about, but like you might also laugh because you know there's a good vibe, right? But if you were to take a photo of it, you might realize, oh, the sky's kind of gray. They weren't very animated in their laughing. A lot of that laugh came through in the tone of their voice, which isn't in a photo. And like, a photo's not going to do that scene justice because it doesn't capture the joy in that person laughing, right? But if you wanted to show that, maybe you exaggerate the gesture, right? So how do you capture that, right? Well, you do it by pushing a gesture, make them throw their hands back, right? You make the colors more vibrant, right? Maybe you focus on the thing that they're laughing about to like make it part of the scene, right? Maybe they were talking about something that wasn't there, right? Maybe they were telling a story, but maybe you add story elements into the scene. You invent things to like really bring to life like, oh, that's what it felt like to be there. That's not what it looked like, but it's what it felt like, right? And that's kind of what I want to do with Planet. Like, maybe not in these, but in some way that's my goal with sort of plein air painting, is you're capturing that feeling, right? And again, this is the same as if you're inventing things from imagination that don't exist, like, you know, a haunted house. And like, how do you paint a haunted house, right? The classic thought experiment. Well, you can't just paint the house that, you know, if you Google haunted house, you can't just paint that old house on the side of your street that you grew up on that rumors said it was haunted. That's just going to look like an old house. It's not going to look haunted, right? So to make something haunted, maybe you play with the colors. Maybe you add some storytelling elements, like some, you know, skulls in the windows, like in a faint pattern, you know? Maybe you add like imagery that makes people think of haunted house. You know, maybe a weird glow coming from inside the windows or something. Like, you know, maybe there's a way that you make it feel more haunted. Without actually, like, or maybe you literally put a ghost in there, right? Like, anything to sort of amp up that vibe, because just painting reality isn't always enough to communicate it. Anyway, that's my goal for this, whether or not I capture that. But I like these little rock piles. I thought they were neat. The patches of green poking through. The asymmetry of the paths here. You know, one of these paths is, you know, one of these paths is quite narrow, and then the other is quite thick and sort of robust in the scene. Use saturation to highlight what we... Yeah, exactly. Well, that's one way, right? That's one of many ways. Saturation, scale, you could make it larger, right? I did it here. I don't know if I did it to a good effect, but like, this was kind of the scene I was painting. And again, I'm not claiming that I made this better than the image, right? But like, I thought if I were here, right, I probably would notice that the surrounding environment, if I don't know if I have... Let me see if I can find... Was this the one? Site's not secure. What? What does that mean? Okay, that's not the one I was painting. Was this the one I was painting? Sorry, hold on. I'm trying to find this image so I can show you. Okay, here it is. So if you were in this image, hypothetically, right, there's a lot of stuff. Maybe the first thing you notice is like, look at all the mountains all around you. 360 view. Also, that's a nice little house. Maybe that's what you'd remember, right? But there's like mountains all around you, right? In every single direction. And in the middle of this sort of empty field, right? There's fields on all sides. There's this little house. And it's run down. And so there's, to me, there's sort of this contrast of like the mountains in the background and the house. Well, that doesn't necessarily come through in this photo, right? Because the mountains aren't that big. So like I intentionally played with scale, right? I don't know if I made it feel like that, but like I wanted to put the scenery behind here, you know? Maybe you put some nice little mountains back here in the distance, right? I think that could be really nice. I also wanted to focus on this building and sort of its rundown nature. And so I got rid of some of this stuff in front of it, right? There's like a power pole here, right? It's not just saturation, but it's scale, it's changing composition to like lead the eye into the subject, right? Sometimes you have to invent stuff. Sometimes you have to fiddle with things. So there's a lot of ways, right? It's not just like one way. But anyway, I'm not claiming that I did it perfect. Oh, got art offering if you want. What do you mean? Oh, yes, for your stream. I'd love to see it. Also, I have a lot of windows open. This one can go away. Hopefully I don't crash. I'm opening up a lot of stuff and my... Ooh, this is gorgeous. Oh, that's a cool image. Oh no, I like the term art tax. I don't dislike most terms. I'm open for anything. Maybe I said I don't like it as art tax. I don't know. Maybe I did say that at one point. I don't mind it. Especially today, I'm pretty chill. I mean, I'm not like against. I mean, I like to just nitpick words. It doesn't mean I'm like against using them. But yeah, so this is art by Ken Fairclough, and then this is the study by Commissar Skull. But yeah, that's cool. This is a neat one because there's definitely some like perspective stuff going on. Yeah, it's neat. You're trying to unblock your head via practice. That's a good way to do it. Oh, this is cool. I like this. I like the way that you actually simplified it a lot, right? Because this is a very complex, and you took these basic forms. That's neat. I like how you did these. Also, you nailed the colors and the vibe on this one. Really, really nice job there. Also, very brutalist. I can tell what you enjoy. You always recommend that I paint brutalist architecture. This is very like industrial. Feels like a dam in like the, you know, blocking water, and it opens up and just, it's like this massive industrial scale. It's pretty neat. Yeah, this is cool. Yeah, the pure black shadows is a neat way to do it. I like this. This is very cool. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for the art tax. If anyone else wants to share, I won't put everyone's art up on screen, but I would love to see what everyone else has been working on. But yeah, currently I am working on this. So this is, I want to do like the thing that I noticed about this was just, I really like this little patch of grass and some of the stuff, you know, sticking out. You got the power pole here. Right, but I also really like the greenery around it. I just, something about all this greenery was really neat. there's little patches of like rocks, and maybe these rocks are a little bit more blue, or maybe they're a little more yellow, I don't know. I'm probably going to add some color dodge in here and really vibrancy, add some vibrancy. Also, I kind of lost track of the wall. There was a wall here. And we're painting a little bit of a lower angle because I want to get closer to this grass. I think that's something that this little side area here. And then, of course, we get some of these patterns here. And then I do like that these still have some light. So I don't want to like get rid of the lighting effect because the light's not... Right now this feels like a foggy environment, and I don't want it to look like that. But I will add in some brighter stuff here in a bit. Like the light. The sky, for example, can obviously be much, much brighter. But also, you know, I probably don't want that much sky in here because I really want it the focus to be down low. Right? So I'm actually going to maybe intentionally exaggerate, you know, the trees back here. Maybe there's a steeple and a church, and that can be in here. Maybe. Classic church shape. Excuse me. Some trees over here. Again, it doesn't have to be like exactly. I just think it's neat to try and get the vibe of the place. A little power pole. This power pole has a little bit of, you know, it's very clean. I'm gonna try to paint the form there. This is obviously there's a wall here. This wall has some neat, you know, old blocks and stuff. Flamingo check, thanks. Posture check. Sitting up straight, thank you. Alright, little bits of the wall in here. Sort of, it's a little bit old. But along this wall, right, we have this green. And that, to me, is that's what I want to focus on. I like this little path. Or not path, but this little edge. And of course we can get some brighter green. You know, what does it look like? Yeah, there's little tufts of grass in here. Not everything is, you know, not all just ground cover. But just there's like a variety of different life. There's some orangey, lighter stuff in here as well. Some browner grass. It's not all just the same. But then the rocks, right? These rocks in here, there's like an entire rock pile. And I'm making them a little bigger, right? I want to make these rocks, like maybe there's a big stone here. You know, there isn't really, but like, it feels like there could be. I'm trying to design the experience. Also, there's a manhole cover, which I don't know if that's important. It might actually not be, but I think it might. If I do it carefully... I think if I do it carefully, it won't even be hardly noticeable, just like it is in the real environment. Right? Just like a little bit of a warmth shift. I'm hardly even changing anything. And of course we have this thing coming down here. right? I actually like the plants up here, kind of around this. I think that's neat. Maybe some of the light from here sticks up. We get some nice silhouette of, you know, graphical shapes going on. Okay, that's good. And then back here, right, we just have, like, layers of buildings. So a building here, a building here. And again, the buildings, this is where I think it really doesn't matter. Because this is not the focus, right? This is, we got a building here. And it's more about just, like, the shapes, right? We feel like we're looking down the alleyway. Again, we do have this big old tree back here. But we also have, like, cars and stuff. Because there's clearly a side road going across. Okay, I'm not sure I'm sold on this warmth here. Okay, now I want to try something. I want to play around and experiment with, like, glow dodge or color dodge. Because I feel like this place is kind of lively. I don't think it's like a gloomy... Right? I don't feel like this is a gloomy place. It's very lively. And in fact, some of this grass and stuff on the side... Right? It's very, like, it's being... The light's on it. And it's not super bright. It's probably a pretty just, you know, cloudy day. Yeah, there's some clouds up there. But I like it, and I think we can emphasize the brightness. Just a little bit. Right? And so we come in here and add some bits of bright. Maybe the sky up here is a little brighter. Okay, that I don't like this gate thing that I did. That's not looking good. I don't exactly know what I'm doing there. But I like everything else, actually. So I'm just gonna come back over, add some additional fencing, kind of break it up. Maybe there's a little bit of, like, stuff back, I don't know. Stuff back here. Can't even see what's back there. You know, maybe just like a little bit of orange wood cabin type stuff. Orange roofs. Right, we do get a lot of red roofs back here, which I want to, you know, probably show. Feels like we should put the orange in there, because there is a lot of color, right? Also, like, this... We don't have anything on this side. It's like a... Well, we do, but there's like a barn and some wood piles. But what if I put this wall on this other side? Like, that's not how the real space is. But it is one of the interesting things, I think, about this space. Right? Like, it's... So, like, what if we just move it? We're allowed to do that. Put some of the bricks in here. Some bigger stones. Right? Like, I think that's something we're allowed to do. It's our art. It's still a little bit blurry. Everything feels like I'm a little bit of a dream almost. Like a, maybe not a fever dream, but it's a little bit of a, like a dreamy blurriness, which I don't think I like. I actually want it to feel like we're awake. And maybe there's the little stone piles of the... Not stone. Little wood pile in here, because it is the shed that we are painting. You know, maybe there's a... fence or something. I like that. And again, I don't want to make this too... What do you call it? Too in our face. With the values or anything, even though the light's coming in here. You know, we can maybe add some stuff, but I do want to keep, like, the big shapes, and most of this I just want to be, like, a big shape, right? It's not... Or maybe not. Maybe I do want to add some light to this wall. And then maybe there's the overhang up here. Actually, don't know what... Yeah, that's just the wall. It's an overhang. I don't want to put, like, weird objects up here, though, because then it, like, draws attention. See, this one so far, I will say, is my... I think I've done the best of this one of all of them. Like, I think if you were to walk through this place, you know, just the... It's hard when you take a photo because, like, you're kind of at, like, car height, right? But, like, if you were to walk through and sort of stop and think about the stuff, like, there is a long strip, right? It might take a minute to walk from here to here. And the entire minute, you are walking along this... maybe not a minute, but you know what I mean. It'll take a while. And the whole time, you have this fence on the side, and you have this little pathway with the gravel, and you're walking wild. And that's kind of the vibe. It's like, you're in this space, and you are paying attention. Again, I don't know if I did it well, but I'm happy with it so far. One day I aspire to be an artist who can make a place feel more lively or more like the place than the place. Today is not that day, but that's okay. I am changing it. And I'm practicing changing it. Do I want this stuff to be green? Like, how lively do I want it? Maybe I do like a color pass. Like an overlay. I just realized I was... Hopefully I wasn't just lagging. Oh. What did I just do? No. Overlay. I mean, I don't think I want orange everywhere, but I will say there is an element of brightness that comes through with orange. And, like, trying to make the space... Because it's warm, right? And all of this stuff has a warmth to it, right? The warm on the wall here, right? These roofs have a warmth. The warmth is bouncing in the wood, right? There's a lot of wood material. And even if it's not, like, direct sunlight everywhere, I mean, there is a lot of direct sunlight, but it still feels warm, at least to me. And that's what I want to add. That's my goal, is to capture that warmth. I don't know. I think that's okay. Maybe we need like a this darker building here. Maybe that's crucial. Maybe it's not. I think it helps break up the scene though, just from like a... Right, it helps break up the scene. We can get sort of like a... And then there's another pole, but I'm gonna make sure that this pole is not creating a tangent. Oh, this is really cool. Thanks. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. I enjoy it. It's just a... I don't do this as much as I should. And, like, you know, it's kind of an exercise in, like, questioning, like, what is important. Also, there's, like, a building over here behind the gate. Obviously, you know, from this view, I don't even know if it would be here. I don't know if it's important. Like, I don't really like this. It's a little weird, but I kind of want to put, like, a dark shape here. No. I don't know. Maybe that'll work. I do wonder if I can do, like, a multiply, sort of like a vignette type thing. Like, emphasize the shadow in the foreground and right along the edge. You know, or like something like this where we paint like a focal point. I don't think that's what I want to do, but yeah, no, that works. Also trying to paint along the form, or along the perspective form. Also, I just realized I had a shadow here, and then I started painting a shadow on top of the shadow. Anyway, that works. There. That will work. There is like a blue. See, this is another thing. Like in this image, there's this blue from here, the reflection of the car. Like that's not something I think I should put in the scene. Like it jumps out to me because like, well, it's a blue streak, right? Isn't that cool? But like nothing in the scene has that, and like that's an artifact from the camera, and I don't know. I mean, we could put it in there. We could also put like a bluer sky if it felt like a blue sky day, you know? Lots of blue in the sky. We can add some blue to the scene. I don't think we need it there though. But like that's one of those things where like I could add it, but why? I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's. And now there is something to be said about just adding bits of color, which I think we totally could do. Anyway, I think this is a good spot to stop for that one. Let's do another. It gives you the right vibes. Yeah, I mean, it's different, right? It's obviously, this is just like a gray scene. Right? There's nothing, it's not really that fancy. But I think that this is interesting, this stuff on the side. And I kind of wanted to capture that, like, as if you're walking along and you're like, look at all the little rocks and stuff. Anyway, so there's that. And then, let's do another. Let's do another. I was thinking about painting this scene. It's just a nice little bridge area, right? We can go over the bridge. Here we are on the bridge. Looking down into the water. Is there a way to get this rid of? Like, surely there's a way to get rid of this. I don't know. Hey, watching along on mute while riding in a car, can't hear but cool pastoral scenes. Aw, thank you. Thanks. We are, I'm doing some virtual plein air. Okay, yeah, we're trying to figure out where it is. Okay, let's go somewhere else. Ooh, this is nice. See, this feels autumny, very autumny. Sunset vibe. The yellow leaves, right? We could do a scene like this and really focus on the colors of autumn colors. We could even exaggerate the autumn colors, right? New Hampton? What's happening there? Oh, it's because it's moving photos stitched together. New Hampton Gardens. Yeah, I don't know if I want to paint that, but it could. Ooh, desert, right? Cat. What is that? What's this? It's an old post. I do like these cattail things. Those are neat. You know what? This is my next painting, I've decided. This is like... I want to do more scenes. Here, I'll also link this if you guys... Oh. That got rid of it. I'll also link this if you guys want to paint a similar, in the same location. This may seem extremely uninteresting to some people, but I want to do more scenes that are up close and not, like, vistas looking into the distance. And I think a lot of people do like this stuff, and it's one of the most fun things to paint, probably. But I always paint that stuff. So I want to paint this. I'm just going to paint the post, the little wires, the plants, right? Basically, and not give it a background. I mean, maybe, but I think that would be a fun framing. Just like, it's almost like a prop, like if you were doing concept art for a game, and they're like, we need the fence, right? We need the fence posts, we need the plants and sort of them on the side of the road that, like, to populate the scene. That's kind of what I want to do. I want to do some shapy stuff up close, get the weeds and the dead grass in there. That's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to take a screenshot. I'm actually just going to take a screenshot of this. No. I'll take a screenshot of the whole thing. I'm not going to paint the whole thing, but it gives me context. There we go. Okay, so next scene. I got a lot of tabs open. We've got that one open, which I can close now. Okay. Fun. Yeah, it is fun. I don't know if you can hear me right now. Probably not. But it is fun. It's different because I'm not trying to make it exactly like the thing, which I know I keep repeating myself, but there's always somebody new tuning in. So like, okay, so let's take this old tree, or this old log. I like that the log, has these different shapes. Bits falling off. Obviously, this is a little small, but... Yeah, let's do that. Right? It's leaning, so maybe we exaggerate the lean. Right? That's again not a thing that I have to do, but I think it would look nice. It is dark, right? It's we have this warmth behind it, right? We don't need to put the warmth everywhere, but is there actually a fence attached to it? I don't actually know. Hold on, let me bring up the map crunch thing again. I don't actually know if there's a fence behind it. It's hard to... Oh yeah, there is. Very lightly. There is the fence here. You can't... It's very low, though. I don't even know if you can see it from this angle. Actually, yeah, it might be just like... The fence is attached here. Right? So... The fence is actually quite low. But this is kind of, you know, sticking up in the sky, a little bit foreshortened. We've got some plants and stuff on the side. So I'm just gonna kind of paint. I think we'll do away with this middle part. And this is a little different, right? I don't do a lot of this kind of thing. Nice blue. I like the orangey red. It is a little darker. I want to make sure that this stuff feels like it's in shadow. But then up top, it has like a weird yellow, like actual yellow, right? And that's a cool texture. I don't know, it's kind of like the soft and fuzzy texture. I also like how there's some golden yellow on this side. And play around with the shape. This is probably a very uninteresting subject matter for most people. Plein air without being outside. Yeah, virtual plein air. I mean, a lot of the same stuff is still like, you know, we have to decide, you know, what is important and how we're gonna paint, you know, and how we're gonna paint it. You know, so it's fun. I really like it. I don't know if that looks right. I'm not trying to make it exactly the same, although this little twirly thing is actually kind of a nice pattern. But yeah, no, it's, yeah, virtual plein air, not going outside. But it is sort of, you know, we explored our environment. We figured out something that looks interesting, and we're like, you know, we can paint this. And that to me is what it's all about, is, you know, you look around, you say, what do I think is interesting? Maybe it's that mountain, and you want to paint the mountain. Maybe it's up close, and it's this plant, right in the foreground. For me, it was this little stump, right? I thought that was interesting. It kind of stuck out. You know, surrounded by these little cattail puffball things. I wish someone got rid of the snow and added like 25°C to the thermometer, and I'd maybe go outside. Oh, is it snowing for you? Oh, that's cool. I think it's cool. No pun intended, of course, but I think snow is neat. Oh, let's go very red here. But yeah, how are you, Nadaski? It's been a while. I think it's been a while. Maybe not. Maybe you were here last time. Trying to add lots and lots of these little thingies. Well, it's cool until I have to commute to work. Yeah, that's true. As long as it's not icy and dangerous, that's obviously a very real thing. As somebody who walks to work, I actually quite enjoy the snowy and icy weather, because I get to slip and slide, and like it's just nice. I don't know. It's fun. It makes it fun to walk around. You have to be a little more careful, but as long as you know it's icy before your first step, you know, gotta test the first couple steps and then see how icy it is, and then once you know it's icy, it's like, you know, most people can walk on ice if they know it's icy. At least that's my experience. But yeah, obviously I don't want people to be injured because of it. Maybe I will put the green behind it. I feel like we need contrast. Because this is not doing it justice. What if I get one of these sleds with dogs? That would be fun. Yeah, yeah, true. I do feel like this blue, maybe a little bit darker blue down here. I mean, on one hand, I also think we should probably do more with the foliage down here and the brush. What if we... Hold on, am I on the wrong layer? No, I'm not. What if we go smaller? I don't want to paint too small because this is hard to, like, capture the whole thing, you know? Because it's just a stick, and we're painting horizontally, which is probably not the best. I don't know what song this is. I mean, it's on the top of screen. Aether Realm, Guardian. Probably for some game or movie. I'm sure it's from something popular that everyone in chat knows except me. Just typically how it goes for these things. And maybe we do get... and I think we need some of the depth to show the environment. It is a little bit... We have some green back here. A little stripe of green. And a stripe of blue. I don't know either. Yeah. I feel like they're gonna start yelling. Okay, maybe something like that. Maybe we'll get rid of that. See, I'm not a big fan of this. Well, the song's fine, but I'm not a big fan of this this thing I'm painting. I mean, maybe it's because it's just like a stick. Not a lot here. Just some stuff sticking up. I realize this is not probably the most exciting of paintings. It just feels like it's something that I think most people would be extremely uninterested in. But I guess that's in some ways what makes this interesting, is it's just like a little feature that sticks out here. And, you know, we have all this brush and, you know, lots of markings, and it's also just hard to paint, kinda, and I think there's a challenge there that I am sort of drawn towards. You know, maybe we do put this green back here. I don't know. I think that green is not in a good spot for this. Maybe we add that green back here. Yeah, this is Ultimate Pumpkin Pie. This is a bit different from my normal streams, and you know, I will say there is. I think this stream is probably, there's more informative stuff because it's sort of, I get to talk through what I'm paying attention to, and you can, like, there's a direct comparison, right? I'm not just making stuff up I mean, I am making a lot up, let's be honest. Like, this is not the same scene I just painted. I am taking something about a scene that I like and sort of saying, okay, this is the focus, and then I'm sort of emphasizing it, right? I'm making this space feel bigger. I'm focusing on the ground, right? I'm changing the perspective a bit. I'm adding some light maybe where it's a little overcast, right? Or a scene like this, right? The mountains aren't like this in the background. But I've tried to take them and, like, you know, if this place is sort of this dilapidated mountain in the middle of this super scenic, beautiful place with these massive mountains all around. And, like, that's what I wanted to focus on, you know? And so I emphasized the mountains and that contrast. And, you know, I could obviously keep spending time. I deleted some stuff like this power pole. Didn't really want that in there. You know, it's not perfect, but to me, I'm trying to capture a vibe. You know, or this is the other one I did. It was just a field, but I liked the lawnmower lines where the grass was, you know, the field was cut, and it's all these in parallel, and it has this like swooshing thing. You're kind of on top of a hill, and I wanted to capture that. I wanted to capture the vibe of like being on a hill and having these perspective lines. You know, is that what you can see? Not really, but when you're, you know, if you were there, I think that's kind of the vibe that you would remember. And so it's really a fun exercise in, you know, taking a scene and saying, what is it about this place that I want to paint? You know, and everyone would paint something different, which is why if you guys want to paint along, you can. This is the random scene that, this is the random scene that I'm painting. But, you know, like, maybe you want to paint the mountains in the background. Maybe you want to go down the road a bit and, you know, paint something. Maybe you want to paint this old car, if you could see it. If you were in real life, obviously, you could be more choosy. We're kind of limited to, like, what's on the road. But you still get a lot of options, you know? And it's sometimes you have to pick, like, you know, maybe you want to, like, again, similar to that last paint I did, you know, or maybe you want to paint this tree or that house, or you want to go down the road and see what's there. I don't know. There's always stuff. Okay, maybe there isn't always stuff. There's a whole lot of nothing here. Ooh, that's a nice little building. Old rundown building. Kind of rundown. Ooh, some grain silos in the distance. That could be a nice view. Even though we just hardly get a view of it. Yeah, we can't even see the grain silos, but you know what? We know they're there. We just saw a glimpse of them. Maybe we've got to see more if we go... There we go. That could be a nice little scene. A field. This stuff probably isn't the most exciting to paint, but I do find that, like, if you can find just a little thing to paint, like the hay bales, you know? Yeah, I can't. I mean, it's not about pretty, though. It's about, like, interest, right? It's like, I mean, this is the same that's true for everything we painted earlier. Like, it really isn't about what is pretty. Like, this to me isn't a beautiful scene, right? There's lots of stuff you could paint. You know, the wall is pretty neat. You could paint the wall, but, like, you know, you could paint the house or the flowers, right? The flowers are pretty, but I thought this was interesting. I thought this little sidewalk area, particularly how, like, there's little rock, you know, there's a bunch of little rocks here. Just this little alleyway, right? I could have gone down here and probably picked something more idealistic, right? Like, this would have been really nice. Like, that's a nice scene, right? You get this little nice window. And maybe that's what you want to paint, right? But I think just being able to, like, take the thing that you notice and emphasize it and say, this is what the subject matter is going to be, right? This little rock area on the side of the road. And then try to paint that. And, like, again, maybe that means you fudge things and change things, and it's not about being accurate. It looks quite cozy. I mean, I don't, maybe, yeah. I thought so. I thought it was kind of neat. But yeah, to me, it's more about communication. The analogy I used earlier in stream was if you were, like, you know, maybe if you were writing a book or something and you were trying to describe this scene, well, how would you describe it? Would you describe it as, you know, a street, but you have on each side rows of houses, and the houses have, wood, and they're made of, there's a barn here with wood for the winter, and there's houses, but they also have plants blooming in the windows. Like, is that how you would describe it, right? And off in the distance, there's a church. Do you describe the things like the buildings on the side, or do you describe it as like a long straight path with, gravel on the side, and there's life popping out between the old rocks, and, you know, there's little bits of shadow and old cracked rocks, and like, like it depends on, you could describe this entire scene, and you could take 500 pages to write it about it, right? But like, you would never do that. It's like more about like, what is the focus? What do you want to talk about? And that's what I like about this sort of plein air, whether plein air painting or virtual plein air painting. There's a lot of voice given to like what you want to describe. And my focus was this, which means I made it a little larger. I put an emphasis on this. I even moved this built wall to the other side so I could paint them both in the same scene. Right? And it's like, I don't know, I just found that fun. Again, it's not... like, I could have focused on anything, but I wanted to focus on this because I thought it was interesting. And, the little plants on the side, and there's a lot of invention. Less about painting what's there and more about what you noticed, and painting the feeling. So yeah, that's kind of my goal with today's painting session. It's not so much a study of how things actually are, but more of a study on what my brain is interested in, and how can I use the tools that I already know about with like perspective and color and value and like scale, and how can I change them to like direct you, to tell the story of like, this is the interesting thing. The scene has like this old fence post, here's an old fence post. Like, and you can't even see that it's a fence in the original. Like, I don't even know if the original image you can see the fence, but I'm adding this fence because I want it to scream fence, right? Fence post. Maybe you didn't even, like, yes, you can get that from the context in the, from the image I linked, right? If you look at this, it's a fence post. But also, if you kind of zoom in, you can't really see the fence, right? The fence is down here, tucked away. So if you were to paint this, it's really easy to get sort of lost in the thoughts of all the details. And before long, it no longer feels like the thing that you experienced or something. I don't know. Or like, maybe there's a weird, like this weird green bush behind it kind of changes the view, and maybe it doesn't frame it as well. Also, like, these plants are really cool. I like these little things, so I want to put those in there. Which I am a little bit. So yeah. Goal is not accuracy. It is communication. And actually, I would even argue that accuracy is sort of also in the eye of the beholder, right? Because you can accurately communicate something. Like, if you want to describe a scene as feeling tense, like, what does that mean? There is no visual information. Like, how would you paint a scene where the vibe of the place is that everyone is tense? Like, that's hard. It's not just a matter of taking a photo and it's going to say that. Like, you might have to change stuff. And so it might be more accurate to change things, because that is going to better communicate the intensity of the situation, right? So a lot of that stuff's super subjective, and I think that's an aspect of art that I haven't really dived into too much. And so, a little bit of what I'm doing is just that, is like diving into being like we were talking about a couple streams ago, or just last stream, I think that here's an artist who does this really well, and kind of the inspiration for the stream. Oh, where is he? Did I close my thing? So the artist is Jordan Grimmer. About 2 years ago, I saw him post a bunch of studies, and Oh no. Okay, hold on. I gotta find it real quick. I have to scroll through countless images. Here, we can do it together. Deep dive into someone's Twitter profile. Also, I don't know why it blurs it out for me. Maybe it's like my computer trying to save space. It's down here a ways. If I click them, then they reveal, which is really weird. I don't know why it's doing this. But he's really good at that. Like, is this a study? No, those aren't studies. I'll know it when I see it. We're getting close. It's down here, I think. The studies that I'm looking for. He did a series of images of like. Okay, I think we're now in study territory. This. Okay, so these two. Was this a study? I think so. No, these weren't. This one was, though. So here's the image, here's the image, right? So here's the photo, here's his study. I feel like in some ways, his images are more, they feel, maybe this one doesn't, but some of them feel more like the place. And I wouldn't even call this a study, right? This is like a painting. It's a plein air painting. In some ways, they feel more like the place. I mean, this isn't really a plein air painting, right? It's just painting from a photo. But in some ways, they feel more like the place than the place. At least to me. Maybe this one doesn't specifically. But some of these are, you know, there's a lot of, like, simplification of, like, you know, this place, I bet you, especially if you don't live here, if you're a tourist, you know, the warmth of the stone is not that's not a building material that we build with. At least not in the States, right? It's like this bright, warm stone, a lot of warm tones. I bet you this place, if you're here, it radiates with warmth, just like visually, right? And I feel like his painting did that. Like, he added the warm colors, right? Really blue sky. It's different, right? It's different than the image, but it to me, it has a liveliness that's more than the image itself. And I think that is, you know, again, maybe he's not the you know, these aren't the perfect examples of this, but like, here's a good example where he's changing things. He's adding that green in, because if he just put the green in the window, it might feel off balance or something. But like, he really put like this contrast of this stone and this greenery. He kind of, you know, put them together and really showed the contrast of that space. That's not in the original. And in some way, you know, he even added things to this building, right? He added architecture elements that weren't there originally. I think that's super cool. And I think that in some ways it makes it feel like the space more than the space. Because maybe there is nearby architecture that's similar to this, and maybe this specific place didn't have that, but you sort of inject it into the scene. And in fact, you can actually see some of that architecture right here, right? But he added it to this building so that it's in the same shot. And like, that way he can really play with the light and shadow and the warmth of, you know, adding warmth in the shadow where like the colors didn't exist there. And I just think that's like a, I don't know, for if I were to paint on location, that's kind of what I would want to do, right? Is like, you walk down the street until something catches your attention, and you say, I want to paint that thing, and I want it to make it feel like I feel right now. So it's less about actually painting the thing, and more about, you know, communicating the vibe. So yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's a really neat way to do it. It's something that I don't do much, and I'm happy to be doing that today. But definitely is not a thing I always do. Most of the stuff I do is inventing. But again, so is this. This is inventing, right? You're inventing shapes, you're inventing colors, you're designing things to make it feel like a place. This sounds like an anime opener. If this isn't the opening for an anime, then I don't know what is. This has got to be an opening for an anime. It's funny how a song can just sound like an anime opener. Okay, I don't want the plants to be as tall as the post, because there's a compositional element here going on. I also think down here there's a lot of them, so we can go heavy on the... all these little puff balls. But yeah, this is kind of art goals for me. Not what I'm doing exactly, but like the good version of it. Is sort of trying to make it more, you know? It is just really an exercise in pushing it. Because I think when you're designing your own stuff, you do the same thing. You're like, I really want it to feel like a thing. And maybe that thing is something that you've experienced before, like this, right? And if you want to design something that really feels like an old, you know, weathered fence post on the side of the road, like maybe this kind of thing is sort of like, okay, it's not just a matter of drawing a fence post, right? Anyone can draw a fence post, but it's more about like the choices you make that communicate that feeling, and I think that's just such a important part in making your own artwork. And it's kind of been a thing I've neglected a little bit. Also, are there... You know, we could put hay bales in here. And the reason I'm going to put hay bales back here is because they are in here. Not in this image. I don't even think they're... Maybe this is one hay bale. There's like one. But if you go down the road here... Oh, we'll close this. Right, if you go down the road, there are hay bales down the road. Like if we go way down here. Take a trip. And so I'm kind of imagining, like, again, if I were here and I were to describe this scene to somebody, how would I describe it, right? I'd probably describe it like there's a fence along a bunch of fields, and the fields have hay, right? They're wheat fields, and, you know, one fence post in particular stood out to me, right? And so if I were to paint that whole scene that I just said, right, I would put that fence post behind, you know, these would be here, right? There might even be a grain silo in the background. It's not in this image specifically, but the vibe is, right? It's sort of the... So anyway, that's something that I think it's just, I don't know, it's just cool to me. I don't know, maybe I'm unique. Maybe, I don't think I'm unique. I think I'm pretty normal. Pretty average. But I think, yeah, maybe a little grain silo back here. In fact... Just stick that there. Just so that I can, you know, make some grain silos. And we'll just put these right back here. Put some very bright, like, shiny material back here. Oh, now we're kind of getting tangential, but that's okay. Something like that, where we just have these little... This is an intense song. There, a little grain silo. Oh, there we go. So there, maybe that one's a little bit not in a good spot. But anyway, that's something, right? Now we have... Actually, let's get rid of this one. Been lurking, just popped back in. Love that. Thanks. Yeah, this one is the most challenging, maybe, because it's such a isolated and zoomed in topic. It's not like I'm painting the whole field. I mean, kind of am, but I'm really just trying to, like, I'm inventing a lot, right? Like, in the same scene, like, there's just a road with a post, but at the same time, there aren't, you can't see the wheat fields back here. But if you just go down the road a bit, you do actually see the wheat fields and the hay, or the straw, I guess. And yeah, right. You see the bales, and then you see the grain silos. And so, like, even though they're not in the same image, I'm trying to capture them to, like, give that feeling. And of course, I'm doing a lot of editing because I'm not, like, there is no greenery behind it that I'm putting in. Yeah, this is a lot of fun. I'm really enjoying this painting session. And if anyone is painting along in any capacity or doing any art, I'd love to see what you're doing. But yeah, welcome back, Vex Gesture. Hope the day is going good. That's a huge compliment. I don't know if it that's kind of the goal. I don't know if I'm achieving it, but yeah. I mean, this is definitely something that I haven't done a lot of. And so I am sort of trying to get better at it, because I want to inject more of this into my art where you can feel, like the place, like you can feel the thing a little. I don't know. It just adds that extra layer of sort of storytelling. And I think it has a lot of overlap with design. Because those are the things that you pay attention to in design also. Because, like, if you want to design, a rogue's lair, or like an old library, like, well, what do you draw, right? Do you just draw every book? Probably not, right? That's too much. Maybe there's an old table, with the book, the papers falling. Like, that's the stuff that you pay attention to. And so it's really just an exercise for me is paying attention. Which, I remember growing up, I was told many times I'm not very observant. And I don't think that's true. I think in fact, I think it was entirely not true. But I think to them, it was more like I wasn't observing the stuff they were, right? Other people might be looking at the obvious things, like the things that, are happening in front of you, two people arguing, and I'm ignoring them. I'm just looking at other stuff. I'm looking at the clouds and the trees, and people are like, you didn't see that giant building that we walked by and they were doing construction on the side of the road? I'm like, nope. You're right. And people are like, oh, you're so not observant. I don't know. I think I am. My attention was just observing something else, And I think, there's sort of I think artists can train themselves to pay attention to the different things, whether it's, things they want to pay attention to, or, their feelings or anything, right? Just anything and everything. There's so much. So yeah, that's kind of what I'm doing here. It's fun. I'm having a good time. But I am getting hungry, and I think 4 paintings is a good amount to do. These, though, I probably shouldn't have put these in so haphazardly. Do you paint traditionally much? I don't. I don't really like painting traditionally as much. Part of it's the mixing paint is hard. But also just like the cleanup, and it's just kind of the hardest part of painting for me is starting, even with digital. If I don't stream, I can go many days without painting, unless I have like a commission or, some other thing I'm working on that needs to get done. It's I still have to like force myself, right? And with traditional, it's even worse. I feel like I'm fighting myself, and it's not because I don't want to do it. It's just like a getting started is just it feels like a monumental task sometimes, and I've never gotten to the point where traditional painting is like has felt as sort of fun to me. It feels more, in some ways, more like a chore. I don't know. I just maybe in the future I will do more of it. I would like to do more. Remove as many barriers. Yeah, exactly. It's there's just a lot of friction. Also, I'm in a very small studio apartment, and you know, maybe some of the ways I like painting, which is oils, doesn't work well when you're in a small studio apartment and you have maybe bad ventilation, and it's just hard. It's there's a lot of barriers. There's a lot of friction to getting started. There's the cleanup, and there's a money thing kind of where like it's just maybe it's not. I mean, okay, it's not that expensive to paint really, but that's more of an excuse. But it's just more. It's also more time consuming because of the setup, and I don't know. It just feels like there's a lot of barriers in my way, like you said. I would like, again, I think if I did it more, those barriers would feel like less of a barrier. Like anything. It's like cooking your favorite recipe, The first time you cook a recipe, you have to like figure out what ingredients you need and where they're located in the store. And it's not always easy, right? It takes a bit of brain power. And it's like you don't always want to make a new thing every day. Sometimes you just want to shut your brain off, buy the stuff you're familiar with, throw it in the pot in the way that you know how, and you cook the thing and you don't have to put brain cells into it, right? It's just no energy. You just make a meal you're familiar with. I think if I painted enough traditionally, I think it could become like a familiar meal that you cook, right? But the way that I'm currently at, or the amount that I paint and the frequency that I do it, and it does feel like it's new every time. It's like I don't even know where I'm gonna put my tools. I have to like make sure I have an extra table that I pull out of a closet to like set up, and I don't know where I'm gonna put that, and am I gonna keep it up when I'm not painting, and it's gonna be in the way. Like I don't have a good routine. I don't have good space. Sometimes I'm missing supplies that I have to like go out and buy. So it's just it might sound like a lot of excuses, which maybe it is, but I think mostly I just haven't done enough of it. But I also just don't enjoy it as much. Digital painting is so fun for me. But yeah. I think someday I will probably do more traditional. I don't love the sensory aspect of digital painting. Like I hate my hands getting dirty, which is a lame excuse, but it's true. I agree. I'm the same way. And I don't want to, I don't really know why I am that way, but I do suspect like money comes into play where like, I don't have like a bunch of extra pairs of painting clothes tucked away in a drawer and in a closet that I don't have space for, right? Like I don't have the extra like and also like I'm extremely like frugal with my paints. Like I don't feel confident of being able to just like make a mistake because it's wasted paint and I don't want to waste it. And so there's sort of this sense of like it's hard for me to enjoy it because there's all these other factors. With digital, I can just make a new layer and slap paint on my I can never do this with traditional. This would feel like I'm wasting paint. And then I would feel like I'm wasting money because paint is money, But that's not true with digital, and I think that it's just so much more freeing, and I can really focus on the painting aspect and not all the other barriers. So I don't know. Again, I think in the future it's very possible that, you know, I have a bigger living space, I have more of an income, I can maybe, you know, I can keep my easel set up all 24/7 in a different room with ventilation, right? And I think those things would go away. Christopher, thank you so much for the follow. Also annoying, they're annoying to clean up. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, again, if you had a designated studio space, there are ways, like, oils won't dry out too fast. You can just, like, cover them with a saran wrap or something. But yeah, there's different ways to do it. But here, before I end stream, I'm not going to end quite yet. But let's reconfigure this. Just so the numbers make sense. 1, 2. Oh. We'll just do that. Oils are fun. I like oils, and I think it's with everything that I paint with, which is I pretty much have painted with most mediums. Haven't done much watercolor though. I think oils are my favorite. The problem is all the things I just said. It just feels like it's a burden, or there's a lot of friction. And again, I don't feel bad for not liking traditional painting as much, because I have digital and I love it. You know, it's absolutely a joy to paint digitally. So I don't feel like I'm missing out really. Most of the skills do translate. Like when I draw or paint, like, you know, all those things like composition and form, you know, I can draw a box. I could draw this scene in anything. You know, it doesn't matter if I could use crayons, you know, I could use my fingers. If you can draw, you know, a cube, right? You can draw it with lines, or you know, you can color it in. And like a lot of the same thing, it doesn't really, you know, it's the same, right? It really, the fundamentals are the fundamentals. Yes, there are some additional, you know, variables in traditional painting. And there's also additional variables in digital painting, like all the menus and the tools, and, you know, just going through all of the windows and understanding what all of the options do. And there's just a lot, right? I mean, every single tool has menus on menus. And then if you have a brush and you want to, like, all the brush settings have menus on menus and just tons of options. And, like, it's a nightmare, right? Learning digital is a pain in the butt too. And so it really is just a matter of, like, what have you put in the most time into? What do you get familiar with? And at some point, I think it's all kind of negligible because you get comfortable with it. So I don't think it really matters what you paint with. But yeah, I'm just trying to clean up a little bit. Make this tidy. There we go. I like watercolors better, and I have a travel size one. Yeah, that's cool though. That's cool that you have like a nice setup that you feel comfortable with. Yeah, watercolor would be cool. Oils are fun to play with, but yeah, like what you said, I have a whole station for them, and maybe I'd play with them more often. Yeah, that's kind of my vibe. Like, I don't really have a studio, right? I mean, I have a studio apartment, but it's not a painting studio. I don't have a separate space. And I think that's also what I like. You know, I have one computer, right? My computer can be what I do art on. Also, what's happening here? It's you know, it's what I paint on, and I'm here. I'm already at my computer most of the day, and so it's nice that I can just kind of, you know, just boot up painting. And that's also one of the benefits of like screen tablets. Now I actually prefer non-screen tablets, but screen tablets have this added benefit of, like, it's your monitor. It's already set up. You already have the table space for it. You don't have to figure that aspect out. And I think that's really neat. That like it definitely removes an extra layer of friction. Whereas like me, I don't have the table space to keep my tablet on my desk all the time, so I have to like move it aside, and then oh, I want to paint and move it back. Now the benefit of that is if I move it onto my desk, it's kind of in the way and I can't do anything else other than paint. So I'm sort of forced to paint. Like I obviously could then move it back, but like it's such a like there really isn't anything else I could do with, you know, I can't even use my mouse really when it's on my desk. So it's kind of a funny situation. I'm trying to think how I want to do this. Do I want to add colors up here? I don't think I do. I think the colors are all pretty good the way they are. This one, we can get a little dark line here. Different material. Different materials, a different value. Not every material is different value, but in this case, I think it works. Also, this is the reference I'm using for this one. Actually, I really like... Maybe I do add another layer back here. And then here, we can actually go... We can put some of these checkered pattern hills back here. Not checkered pattern, they're not checkered at all. But they have these you know, blue into the orange, these nice contrasts. I should have painted this before these foothills. I should have painted them before I did the background. I should have done the background first, but this will work. You know, old wood. We can even add maybe some, like... I'm curious, is there any additional form? I mean, there's this, like, feathery look to it, which is kind of weird. But maybe we do add some of that. Some of this old, like, textured here. It's like old, kind of falling. It's almost feathery. It's weird. It's a weird material, and I don't know if I want to include that in there. That featheriness. Yeah, that featheriness is kind of weird. It's just like because the wood weathers and it flakes off, and like I've experienced that if you were to rub your hand across it, you would just get covered in like wood stuff. But it's kind of a weird texture to show. I don't think I want to. I don't know if I want to show it properly. I don't know how important it is. A little bit of orange here. Yeah, I think this is the last one of the day before I end stream. But I do want to say thank you guys for being here. It's good hanging out. Good chats. Good talks. I feel like this isn't really a topic that I've talked much about because I haven't done a lot of this sort of thing. And it's hard to, like, practice this skill. I mean, I guess I do practice this skill a little bit when I'm inventing things. But it's definitely easier to explain when you have the real thing in front of you and it's not just like based on your memory, you know? But also it's not directly referencing when you're designing always. Sometimes there's like a, you know, like composition and story and like, you know, you don't always have a reference that tells that exact story. So like you have to, you're pulling from all parts of your knowledge, you know? And this is a little bit more direct, and I feel like the learning experience is a little bit easier to follow in a way, because it's the stuff that I'm talking about is you can basically compare, and I think that's neat. It's neat to talk about. Thanks for walking through your thoughts. It's really nice to learn. Yeah, I mean, I look, I'm not claiming that I can teach everyone stuff, or you know, take from it what you will. I'm certainly not the, you know, the expert here. I feel like I have some experience, and maybe there's something someone can take from it, but I certainly don't know everything there is to know about plein air painting, or whatever you want to call this, painting from an image, with the intent of making the art you want to make not, you know, not as purely as a reference, but as like, this is interesting to me, let me paint this, right? That's kind of the, I think that's the major difference of what I did today. Because that's pretty rare, and I think maybe with all the you know, study type things, everyone's always talking about studies, right? You can kind of get stuck in this loop of like forever studying, which obviously you should always be a student. You should always be learning, and I guess studying is part of that. But it's sort of this like, you know, oh, you know, what is, like, if you look through someone's, you know, art station or Instagram, like every single thing is like, here's a study, here's a study. It's like, this to me, I wouldn't call a study. I would call it painting from reference, or virtual plein air, or, you know, but because like it's, there's still a design, right? There's a lot of design going on, kind of. This one maybe less than others, I don't know. But this feels more like an actual piece of art that I wanted to make, because I could have chosen anything in that image, you know, or in that location. I don't know. It's just a different, it's like a different mindset. It's funny how that works. But like the end product might end up looking the same. I think it's interesting. All right. Now, before I end, let's crop this. Let's save it, because that's important. File, new. Hold on, how do I do this? 2020 by 1228. So 1228. File, new. 1228. Okay. And then paste. I'll just paste all of these in here. Actually, no, let's do this first. I guess we can crop these just randomly, because that's kind of what the vibe is. Delete. Now I can scale it, and then I can take this one, put that in here. I'm just trying to clean these up so I can show what my references were. They're all going to be different sizes. This is going to be awkward. Oh, this one's actually like already the right size. And then this one, which needs some major cropping. There we go. Okay, are they in the right order? I want to be able to make them similar. So this one's first. Yeah, that's right. This one's second. We can... Oh. Go like this, maybe. I should probably make these a similar size. Okay, hold on. What is the best way to do this? Okay, let's close this. Sorry, I'm sort of graphic designing again. You know what we could do? We could take this. Now, obviously this isn't going to work, but because we have random painting on top for some reason, because I failed. My layers were so messy. Oh no. This will be fine though. This will just give me like a border to fit things in, you know? And I'm not worried about getting the whole reference in because that wasn't even how I painted them, right? I didn't paint the whole reference. I just kind of took parts, invented things, changed stuff, painted the stuff that I thought felt close, you know? There we go. Street view paintings. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go. Now we can go like that. Kind of funny to do this, like this little cleanup. Like, who am I presenting this to, you know? Not really anyone. I don't know why I'm putting the numbers here. I guess I'll just do this. As you guys can tell, right? Like, there. That'll be the references. This'll be my art. See, this one's not as vibrant. Oh gosh, now I'm like second guessing myself. Do I want to do like an overlay and darken this a bit? Maybe. Like, it's funny how when you look back, it's like, I'm not trying to make it look like the thing, but I do want it to... Yeah, I like that. I just don't want one of them to be so much higher contrast than the other that it kind of like, when you look at the two, you're like, this one is wrong, right? I think that's also something. Like, I still want it to feel like it's the place, but I also want it to, you know, hopefully I've made it different enough and maybe a little more in some ways. I'm happy with it. Okay. That was a successful painting session, if I do say so myself. Oh, what's the... Save this there. Okay. So yeah, these are references. I should probably write refs or something in here. Maybe that's what I'll do. Maybe I'll go like this. I mean, I think people can tell that these are the references. How do you spell reference? It would be very embarrassing if I spelled that wrong. References. 1 R, 1 F, 1 everything. Okay. Just double checking. R-E-F. Hold on, let's respell it. Refer. Okay, spelling's hard, okay? Oh no, I'm on the wrong layer. Hold on. There we go. Okay, there. That's silly. I'm pretty sure I could have spelled it. I'm pretty sure that's how I would have spelled it, but it could have been wrong, and so I just want to double check. But anyway, thanks for being here, everybody. And I stream 3 days a week. I am not streaming on Thursday, so Thursday is gonna be... Yeah, Thursday is the end. Sorry, what am I talking about? Thursday is the end. What does that even mean? No, Thursday is Thanksgiving in the US, and so I am going to be eating food with my family, and so I will not be able to stream. But I will be back on Saturday, so next stream will be Saturday, the 20-something, 29th. So we got 5 days off. It'll be a bit, so 5 more days, but yeah. So yeah, see you Saturday. Thanks for being here.